Welcome back to the LOW APM Challenge, where I try to teach you to work smarter and not harder in one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, games in the entire world. A game that is so stressful that most people would rather actually work than play it. It has a lot of fun modes. It's got co-op, it's got custom races and custom games, it's got direct strike and every sort of tower defense from gambling to otherwise, and we're not going to be doing any of that. We're not gambling, there will be no variety. What we're going to be doing is ranking up with Zerg and LOW APM. No, we're not going to be building a bunch of Zerglings, or even Banelings. No. Instead, we are focused more on, yes, the queens, the spores, the roaches, the hydras, everything you need to win, but nothing more. As you've known by watching so far, Zerg, difficult. The macro mechanics are extensive, so priorities are everything. And you may now know there's a new patch in StarCraft 2. Queens can no longer transfuse off a creep, which changes very little to nothing about what we'll be doing in the LOW APM challenge, because walking queens off of creep is not our priority. Having enough of it around our base and letting our silver and gold opponents walk right into them will be perfectly fine for our purposes. So, make sure to join the hashtag YasQueens movement as we learn more to play Zerg in StarCraft 2. That was a sentence that made sense. So far, we've talked about Queen's Larva and Creep. Three sides of the same coin. Hatchery hotkeys, avoiding bad habits like having your overlords in terrible spots, or focusing too much on bad priorities like creep spread over actual unit production. Basic scouting like overlord placements. Drones versus not drones, making sure you're not stuck with 0 units at the wrong time. And of course, overlords again, as there's a lot of detail to it. And we should, all things going well, be reaching into gold, where we focus more on mechanics, like larva inject, like more creep spread, and more advanced overlords, as well as timings, and the tech tree, especially at the lair. Yes, not mutas, not mootas. In general, lisks are not what we're going to be focusing on. Hydralisks, maybe. Roaches, though, are still going to be the order of the day. We're going to have some production and upgrade targets as well as we go in. Starting out at Silver 1, the APM limit that we'll be aiming for is 75, which I know has been a struggle, just because Zerg, in general, just building units already takes double the APM of the other races, because you got to select the hatchery, then select the... I mean, we'll go through the process. But that is the goal, and then moving up as Zerg starts to outstrip the other races in APM, just the sheer nature of building their units. Well, we'll see. And the punishment, of course, if this is your first time, I hope it is, at the same time, I hope it isn't, is that I have to pay for it, quite literally. Of course, we're live with the beautiful vampires on Twitch, and I will be gifting a sub for every 5 APM I go over the limit, with the exceptions of, like, stream snipers and stuff. But, so, if you're tuning in for the Zerg LOW APM challenge, it's your best chance for a free sub, as it has been an inconsistent process, to say the least. But we'll do our best again here in episode 3. Silver League Tier 1. Get those hotkeys. Oh, give me a second. Come on. I thought nobody played this game. We'll start by nailing down the basics, making sure the overlords go to the right spot. Unlike Terran, and especially unlike Protoss, if you've been watching, Zerg, even up through Diamond, really doesn't need a huge variation in openers. I actually, in the interest of being more standardized, will be going for a Zergling speed opener. It's the 17, 17, 17. All right? What I mean by that is hatchery, you build a drone. Gas geyser, you build a drone. Spawning pool, you build a drone. But that is because the drone gets eaten up when it gets promoted. Or we sell it as a promotion into a building. But also, something important to consider. In general, a lot of players will just build a bunch of static defense and think relatively cheap. Zerg actually has the most expensive static defense in the game, spines and spores. One, they only hit individual things. Of course, like Terran, they have planetaries and turrets. It's a bit of a difference. But when you think about it, as soon as you build that piece of static defense, as soon as that drone turns into a spore or spine, it will no longer mine any more anything ever again. And that is, it is resigned and forced into being a defender for the rest of its sometimes long, sometimes short life. A lot of players don't really consider that. Like, some players might consider the cost of the drone, like the extra 50 minerals to build one, and one larva. Remember, respect your larva. But not too many players consider you're losing 50 to 60 minerals a minute for the rest of the minutes that you could be mining. All right. I'm going to pull one drone out of gas and start Zergling speed. We'll keep 2 drones in gas, and this means I will be banking some gas. I'm sending the Zerglings across the map and building more drones and rallying them to the natural. I'm getting Zergling speed. This is mostly, if he attacks me, I'll build more Zerglings. Zerglings are a safer early defense against someone who has like a proxy Rex or something like that. But overall, we will be using it as a stepping stone into the roaches. At 30 to 34, I'm getting a couple more overlords, building the overlords, and rallying them out to where I want them. One towards my 3rd, one towards the 4th. The drones will scout the expansion. Notice how the Marines came out 2 by 2 there? Well, you know what that means. He has a reactor. So, I'm going to start my creep spread. Two creep tumors next to each other spread, not directly next to each other, within a few range, will spread the creep twice as fast. It doesn't keep going. It's not like you can get infinite. It's limited to 2, but you can actually spread a little faster. All right. 3:30, I should have started that roach warren. So we know he's expanded, which means I shouldn't be dying right now. I'm still adding on some overlords. And with Zerg, yeah, I see some comments already. It's not about having a specific build. It's about having a game plan, a framework, really, and then reacting to what your opponent is doing to an extent. So I'm going to have the roach warren. I'm going to start the lair. I'm going to get spores at spore 20. But I'm not doing any sort of specific build besides working my way to 60 or so drones. Honestly, I should have started the 3rd by 4 minutes. First game, warm-up game. I should have played the Elite AI. As you know, I did make some more lings as well for scouting. We'll get minute-by-minute scouting. Once I have over 20 drones here, I'm just going to get those gas geysers. He has a lot of Marines and Marauders. Okay.
Command here.
So what we're going to do is immediately build a Hydralisk den, as well as get roach speed. Going to queue up a couple injects here. I'm only at 43 drones. We're going to try to get to about 50. And until he has a 3rd base, I shouldn't need too many more than that. Right click, on the gas. Shift 1, 2, 3. Right click. Shift 1, 2, 3. I should be able to see when he's coming out of his base. There's a small chance things like drops could come out, but notice my overlords are all spread out. Let me get the gas as well in my main. How many drones? Let's go over that 50 mark, but we gotta be careful. Getting the +1/+1 now. We will tighten up the build a little. I'm actually... I joke, but it is a warm-up game for me as well. You can play against the AI if you'd like, but, I mean, if you're not too worried about your ladder points, I think it's better to just play a ladder game, lose, be like, alright, wait, simmer down. Notice I have a lot of minerals here, so I'm adding a few more drones, and I mean, why not? I got 1,000 minerals, let's get a fourth. I need more larvae. I'm using camera locations on each base, F2 through F5 on my first 4 bases, in order to flip over and do inject. Oh my god, I struggle. But yeah, for injecting in general. Oh my god. I'm gonna give you guys a hot tip. Alright. This one, I've tried to do it in the past, but Scarlett let me know about this one. It's actually a faster way of doing camera location injects. It's very simple, but it makes complete sense. You just hotkey the queens for injects. Notice I have queens on 2. Those are my defense queens. And then on 6, I have my inject queens, which I usually have my like utility units. So I'm just gonna select 6. I just wasn't in the habit of doing that. Scarlett's like, why aren't you doing that? I'm like, because I'm not very good at this game. So, like, so there you go. I mean, it makes sense. Instead of having to box select each queen, you just have a hotkey. You could still box select each queen if you like, but... I'm actually right now getting in the habit of doing it. It's obviously better, but I was in the habit of box selecting each queen. It actually is less APM to do this, by the way. Because you're not selecting a new thing each time. You're still on the same selection. So it's actually less APM to do it faster. This is, well, the camera location injects are the ones that are used. Base camera injects are rarely used because of how much they can go wrong. How much flipping between the bases and just sending your queens out can go wrong. And it can go very wrong if you lose one base or a couple queens. There you go. What do we got? Alright. I made way too many laser lords. I'm gonna get an infestation pit and a lurker den. Oh, wow. Uh-oh. That's a lot of stuff he's got there.
No more minerals in the field.
I am,
Field exhausted. Time to
yeah,
expand
that's a
and
lot.
advance.
You know, we might run into the issue of like the other low APM challenges being ahead of some of them, which could create issues for myself. This is the best concave I'm gonna get here. I'm gonna use the queens to transfuse what I can and build whatever units I can. Because he did kind of walk up into there. If he hadn't walked into the best possible concave on the map. Like if he had done a tank push, especially on one of my outside bases. Fortunately, he went full mid lane there. But make no mistake, that was very scary. That was a scary amount of units. It's just most of them couldn't fight. So I won the fight. I still have an army. I'm going to get my hive. And now I'm going to build some of those lurkers. And I'm going to hotkey them on 3. I usually just control click lurkers. But getting in the habit of hotkeying isn't necessarily bad. I do find myself kind of hurting for hotkeys in the later game. Even playing regular games. Because usually I have my main army on 1. I have queens on 2. I have things like lurkers or vipers on 3. And then I'll put the other unit on 5 because my hatcheries are on the 4 key. So I went up 73 up to 80 drones. Let's do that. I don't have a camera location on the last base. I have the minerals here. I think we can take a few more bases as well. I mean, what am I going to run out of money? A few overseers because I'm getting close to maxed out. I have a hive done. I'm going to essentially, I think, especially for Zerg, you have 2 timings. You have your lair tech peak, and then you have your hive tech, which is your more late game. So lair tech peak would have been if I had just counterattacked immediately after that fight, or focused on maxing out originally, which is quicker and can work just fine, but has less room for error, because if you attack the wrong spot, or they just have enough stuff, you might leave yourself in a position where you can't recover. Let's burrow those lurkers. I did say we weren't going to build many hydras, but generally hydras are solid enough. They're good placeholders for lurkers. Let's unburrow those lurkers. And yeah, that's... yeah. We're gonna go. After that. Now lurker range is done. Did he research siege mode? Honestly, he had quite good macro. He was pretty much maxed out at like 10 minutes. Obviously, walking up a ramp into a huge concave and not having these orbitals is not great, but like, he made a lot. I was legitimately scared of that arm. It was just, it did come down to micro. When does Roach Hydra stop working? Here, unlike in the last low APM challenge, I think everyone, even silver, should attempt, like they should at least get a lurker down. Okay? That is the follow-up. I think Roach Hydra is fine as long as you have lurkers. Like, you've thought about lurkers, essentially. Like, as long as you're getting a lurker done and thinking about lurkers, maxing out on Roach Hydra continues to be fine. But, instead of just that being the end goal, I want people to be ready to go lurkers if needed.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
I'm going to focus. I wanna talk about my mistakes in that game. And generally, like, build order mistakes. I did not get to 40 drones and make units. I was very vulnerable, potentially, to either an all-in or a quick timing attack. Zerg is generally the most vulnerable to early timings, just because they have to make the active decision on whether to build units. Terrans especially, but also Protoss kind of have their units built in, because they're not built from the same building as you build your workers. So I'm going to focus on making that active decision when needed to build units. Yes, Hydra Melee, which is technically uses ranged attack. Nice. I mean, credit to him. That was some solid low APM Terran there. He built a maxed out army. In, like, the army value was quite strong. as well. So, like, remember, this is the low APM challenge. All the fun implications, sarcasm, and cynicism of Angry Coach are left at the door. They might be looking in the window, waiting for their moment, but we're trying to leave them outside most of the time. So just FYI. I know, no, my voice just sounds like this. That's just how it is. I just talk like this. It's not my fault. Too many years of Twitch chat. I take no responsibility. But yeah. So I think your general goal is 6 queens in the early game. Minimum. 3 on D, 3 on injects. And easily you could go to like 9 or 10. But focusing on building more than just the one. The goat. He has a Reynor portrait too. But it's a Terran. When do we worry about creep tumors? Right now, the focus is once the second queen pops out, we build creep tumors with the first queens. So you have like the rotating. They get promoted to creep queens, essentially.
Don't relax.
And the focus is just getting creep between the bases right now. Maybe if it's obvious, like a 1 or 2 outside the base, but you saw how many minerals I was banking. I definitely could have focused more on unit production. Any time spent doing creep tumors, when you have larvae and minerals, outside of having creep between your bases, is a waste of time. Because creep gives you vision via the creep tumors, and it speeds your units up. Some of them more than others. But if you don't have as many units as you could, it kind of defeats the purpose as well. Like, it's better to have 50 Zerglings off creep than 20 Zerglings on it. Queens blur the line a bit, but on the bright side, queens don't take larvae. So even though you're going to hear a decent amount about how queen transfuse no longer works off creep, that's the only nerf. This does not affect in any way pretty much anyone below the bleeding edge of like Masters and GM. Alright, so we built a command center out there. I'm going to send 2 drones down, and now here's a pro tip for proxies. I'm holding shift and right-clicking, because if you don't do that, the SCV may do its little like wandering around the command center. Now, essentially it's following the SCV when it does its little cute moves like that. And then, of course, it makes it a lot easier. So that is good for especially chasing SCVs, but just workers in general, because sometimes it can be finicky. We have the Overlord there. The second Overlord. So only Berlingrad doesn't have a pervert pillar of the maps in the current pool. Most do, so that is where I'm putting my first Overlord. It can see the front, anything walking or driving out, and it can see he's building a command center, and that's all I need to know. So the counter is just killing the SCV and moving on with my life here. This will expedite some of the process. I didn't start Zergling speed. I'm just going to keep 3 in gas. So the choices are get gas later and not worry about speed. We will be adding some of the pulling out of gas stuff. That is a relatively standard part of playing Zerg, is getting just enough gas to get Zergling speed and then pulling a couple drones. Not all, usually, but focusing on mineral production. But right now, I should have been building more queens. I'm gonna send the Zerglings to the main. Well, remember, scouts and drones. All right, shift, right click, and move on with my life. Scouts and drones. So what did he have? He had a barracks. He had 1 gas. I don't actually know if I saw the second gas. He's building a planetary fortress. Okay. So we're gonna go take a third. He's going to have 1 Reaper. I'm gonna build 2 Lynx. Control 1. Do those injects. Control Shift 2. For my creep / defense queens. And now we're gonna go to 66 drones. And we're gonna max out on roaches. Start my lair. And we're gonna get Evo chambers and a roach warren as well. The reason I delayed all these and I'm not getting a spore or anything, I'll get Spive 20. So there's Spore 20 and Spive 20, which is a even worse pun. But when you know there's not going to be air, but you can't be sure 100% that there will never be, Spive 20. That's like more of a ZVZ. But Spore 20 is when you're up against Terran and Protoss especially, who can have an air unit around that time. Usually a little earlier, but only if they're really, really focused on it. So that'll cover 95% of games. More drone.
Morph location is wrong.
Get 3 in gas. 66 is 16 on minerals at each base. And 6 on gas. So right click, shift, 1, 2, 3. Right click, shift, 1, 2, 3. And then the rest of the drones we're going to send to the third with that camera location. This should do it, pretty much. Well, overlords. Congratulations, you are now my inject queen. Yeah, it's so much easier with the control groups. I can't believe I wasn't doing that before. So you know who Scarlett learned this from, apparently. And it's surprising that it is relatively new. And by that I mean like several years old, but Rogue. The guy who ruins the top level games with your favorite players because he just doesn't care about having fun, he cares about winning. Rogue. He was the one who popularized it. For some reason, nobody was doing it. Alright, roaches now. He's like, this is just better. That's a very Rogue thing. Alright. I need more overlords. We're gonna get... So, even though I'm gonna max out on roaches, we're still getting... Lair Volume 2, which is... Hydroden Infestation Pit. Maybe not at the same time, depending on the game. But that's essentially the rest of your tech tree there. Oh, I did it again. F2, F3, F4. Alright, some more drones. Don't get too carried away, though. Those are all overlords. I'm going to control click if you have the time, and then all those overlords will go. Honestly, if anything gets there, he's snuck some... You know, there's a very good chance, now that I think about it, he's just going to sit there and build battle cruisers. And Zerg, their core units, unlike Protoss and Terran, don't really counter air that well. Like, queens, yes, but battle cruisers have so much armor. So, if he's sitting on 2 bases, turtling up, it's gonna be battle cruisers, isn't it? I'm gonna come over there with like 200 supply. I'm scouting with the overlord. I'm also getting overlord speed, but I just make sure we have a spore. A spore won't stop it, but at least it'll slightly discourage it. All right. What? It's not battle cruisers. It is the Industrial Revolution. Okay. He doesn't actually... Okay, so we're going to... Well, we're already getting a hive. It's going to be... The answer is Vipers, by the way. So, I'm just getting... I'm holding down the roach key. I had a lot of larvae. Thanks to those injects. It's so much easier. Oh my god. This is me learning live as well. For the class. It's very simple. Like, it's taken me a game and a half. I mean, it'll probably take you guys a little longer. With a little less experience. Or maybe less time if you don't actually have a method you've been using for so many games. Alright, looks like the suburbs are coming together. Alright, and hive is done. So 1, 2... We're gonna make 5 Vipers. And we're gonna make some Overseers with them. Alright. We're gonna now just go to... Make a round of drones. That'll bring us to 80 drones. Hotkey in those other hatcheries. +3, +3. I'm gonna make battery packs as well. You see what he's doing? I'm gonna do that, but this is for the Vipers to sip on right now. So technically, if you have enough queens, you can have renewable energy. In the form of queens transfusing buildings that Vipers are sipping on, but don't do that. Evo chambers have the highest HP to mineral ratio. So that is why they're usually used for Viper battery packs. So consume only gets about 100 energy. So you shift Q it in order to get to that max. Why not just have queens directly inject energy into Vipers? Because the microbial frequencies are discordant. And when you have 2 discordant frequencies, the overlap resonance is going to create a interference field that will negate the effectiveness of their abilities.
Your forces are
Read a book.
Mineral field exhausted. Back to basic fast and defense.
You gotta be careful not to click twice when you're doing that. So, the one thing you can't do with the control group system, and also the reason why base camera is less precise, is because if you click twice, then it'll just take a queen from another hatchery. So, I'm just rotating through the camera and pressing that inject button. Alright. I have the select all army key. You know what I actually learned today from one of your comments? And, like, we're learning so much today. So, you know how to remove one thing from the control... So, say you have all this selected. Instead of putting something in another group and selecting it, like if I want to select all my Vipers, I do this. Control-click, right? You know what I never... Like, I may have known it, but I don't use it? If I Control-Shift... You have everything else selected, and the Vipers are deselected. Control plus Shift. 12 years! 12 years! I always would just hotkey them on something different. I would use the process of elimination. I can't believe. I choose to believe it was only added, like, a month ago, but that's definitely not true. Anyways.
It should have happened.
So we have all the roaches. I'm gonna get all the hatcheries. We're gonna get a greater spire. The Hydra upgrades. The hardest part to mimic is the hotkey management. that is something I am doing my best, especially for Zerg, to point out what I'm doing for you guys. Because Zerg is a lot of housekeeping. A lot of the stuff you don't see on casts of Serral versus Reynor or whatever. But it is something that just takes a while to learn. It's not simple. It's not like other RTS. You're going to spend games either panicking and ignoring what you've been trying to learn, or losing because you're too slow. That's the simple version. That's how it is. Welcome to StarCraft. Gonna get this gas. 3-3 is done. I'm actually gonna start that melee upgrade.
No more minerals.
Do the injects before the attack. And we're gonna send the Vipers in. Does he not have a base there? We gotta go through the depot maze.
Evolution process is finished.
Blinding cloud. Oh my god. We need approximately every Broodlord that ever existed to be built, as well as lurkers. Uh-huh. What the hell? You want to know how to say you're smurfing without saying you're smurfing? He had 642 APM, which might seem like you have to go through insane effort to do that. Like, that is literally just holding down 2 different keys and alternating between them. He won 3 days ago with a fraction of it. Yeah, well. So, like, in a real game, well, what I would have done is then build a round of Broodlords and, very importantly, a bunch of Vipers again. Because the Thors actually beat Broodlords, but if you use Blinding Cloud and have enough broods, then because the Thors are such, they have a large fill in the blank, they kind of can't actually attack because the broodlings get all up in their business. Why did he do that? Because my suspicion, based on a lot of evidence, is he was stream sniping, and that's why he was spamming and then tapped out anyways, because he didn't want to actually win. Based on all evidence. Because Sichon, no new player, even one that is wasting their time, I challenge any of you to figure out how to get 640 APM average. It takes effort, a whole lot of effort and knowledge to do that. I mean, not that much, but like... So, you might be like, wow, that's a lot of Terrans out there. In general, though, in the Silver League, Terran is nearly... In Bronze, it's nearly 50%. In Silver League, Terran is only like 45%. So, it's not until about Platinum when things start to even out. I think that's when Zergs make a significant surge, as I always say, because the reason so many Zergs are able to get to Platinum is because Terran and Protoss hit a wall at Gold. They hit a wall because they don't build one. And that was another giveaway on the other side, was that he built an efficient wall at his natural. I have never seen a legitimately Silver Terran build a solid, efficient wall at their natural. Okay, not never, but it is very rare. You get a lot of creativity, but not efficiency. That's, There's creativity there for sure, but... I'm not talking about the depot spam at the front. I'm talking about the walling off the correct location. But yeah, like a lot of Zergs, once they put in the time, will find their way into the Platinum League. This is what we've learned in Angry Coach, and in general. It's simply because you can get away with Zerg rushing. A lot of the reason that Terran and Protoss struggle up before then against Zerg is just, like, they get units in their base, and let's be honest, like, defending your base and doing anything else is a lot to ask. So that's why it's such a priority in the other series here, to learn how to wall off, when to wall off, why to wall off, and a lot of the time that becomes a free win against Zerg. What have we seen? Something like at least half of the legitimate Zerg players we played against as Terran and as Protoss have just built like 50 Zerglings, and that was the build. That was the build was build Zerglings, and then that fails and like maybe Banelings, like, but because a lot of players are too timid to wall off. So I got the 17, 17, 17. I built the 2 queens. I'm building 2 more now.
Like enemy want to destroy the base.
Oh. And then I build 4 lings to start. And those are for defending the Reaper. This is actually your very default. Like, this is your go-to build. At the higher level. It is just build 4 lings at the start. It doesn't really matter what matchup you're in. If you're in like a relatively normal game where they aren't building barracks outside your base or Zerglings are already in there or something, then getting 4 lings is the play. This is odd. Let's move these queens.
Your forces are under attack.
Okay. So that was...
Your brood has improved.
There goes the Reapers. I'm getting creep now. So the counter to Reapers is queens. Especially, like, the danger is that he builds so many that I can't deal with it. But when he keeps losing them, I'm going to send these overlords out. Alright. Get the Roach Warren. An Evo Chamber. Just more drones, like... So we see a starport, which means Spore 20 is back on the menu. I actually kind of forgot about it, because I'm like, he doesn't... We're going to send the Overlord... The Patroller Lords, remember. Right-click on the minimap, and then Shift Patrol. It doesn't need to be perfect. The idea is partially to get you to look at the minimap, and partially to scout for hidden bases with a unit that won't be on Selecto Army or that easily killed. Get that lair. Barely before 5 minutes. I was aiming for 5 minutes. More gas. We did see he was building an expansion in his base as well. I'm going to send the Zerglings around to look in all the other bases, because you know how it is. More Evo Chamber. Inject. You can just... So, this is another thing. Like, Dark, the master of freestyling with Zerg, will sometimes... He'll do the control group injects, but he'll just have extra queens. Like, he's no elitist. He's like, well, I don't always remember to inject with 1 queen, so I just leave 2 by the hatch. Dark is the epitome of close enough when it comes to Zerg. Oh, Liberators. So I need to move my Spore Crawler into position over here.
Acceptable command here.
Which I actually kind of screwed over a little. And this is gonna suck. But the Spore Crawler will deal with it.
You have exhausted all the
We're actually gonna get a Spire. The Spire is only potentially for Corruptors. I need to put queens back on that inject key. Because if he builds ranged Liberators, then I actually... I can actually not hit them with the queens. There are some places on some maps that you can't hit range liberators, which does really suck.
Minerals is ended.
You do need air units to Zerg. It is a huge investment
Stronger now.
from the Zerg. It's not like it's cheap. You need a fusion core. You need the upgrade. We got 62 drones. So now I should try to figure out what he's doing. Let's get Overlord speed as well.
Finally, evolution process successful.
I've got a little creep. Like, I'd like to have some more vision. I don't need too much more, but gonna get that Hydra den as well. We're not going for tier 2 layer quite yet. Let's get to one more round of drones. Can make some more. I'll make a hatchery in the main. I have the money. All right, let's not be stingy.
Under attack.
Some Marines. Get +2 Carapace. Time for some roaches.
Evolution process.
The reason I felt safe is 2 Liberators plus someone who built a Viking plus the fact I know he expanded means that he's unlikely to have a huge army too early. But going past 70 drones with only queens on defense is greedy. It is. It is. So I did overdo it a bit. That's what Zerg is. It's overdoing it a little bit and getting away with it.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defensive.
I'm gonna get that infestation pit now that I was able to
Have
build
exhausted
some
all
units.
the minerals in the cluster.
I know, I got 33 drones over here, which is way over the amount, too. That is efficient. I'm going to send this Overlord out. I'm just going to have an Overlord in the middle. It's kind of like all those spotter pylons and things. And there's no reason not to turn on the creep rain, which is a very generous way of putting what it looks like. Enjoy. It's like a hot shower for the Zergs, okay? It's first class treatment. Let's get that hive started.
See the full power of the swarm.
And scouts and drones. Scouts and drones. He's got a lot going on there. Let's get some hydras. We got, so pro tip, each of these selection boxes is 8. So 2 lines of drones is full mineral saturation. So I shift clicked off. Boom. There you go, 16 drones. Can re-rally with the right click. And fun fact, if you right click on the minerals, it rallies your workers separately.
Your forces are under
Which
attack.
was another one of those tips. I did know that one, but I was actually using the hatchery
Stronger now.
worker rally point hotkey as opposed to just right-clicking for a while. For many years, actually.
Someone wants to see the full power of the swarm.
But I've gotten out of that habit for a while now, which is good. Oh yeah, let's get that lurker down as well. The Vikings are hunting my brovies. But we already saw he's on essentially 2 base here. I think a general rule, we're gonna really try to use, you know what? I was gonna say we're gonna really try to use Vipers, but no. I'm gonna max out, and I'm gonna A-move. He's microing Vikings, which, maybe a couple millennia late for that.
It should have happened. Your minerals
Creepy.
is
I know, right? Let's get those overseers.
no more
I'm gonna get the lurker ups. Let's get gas geysers here. And even though they're not done, you can just, like any other race, you can just queue the drones up to it. Select all army. We're going through.
No joke with the Zerg.
And we'll have to say. So, what are we missing in upgrades? As my units go across, I'm gonna get some injects out. He may not realize we're not in the campaign. What a spread though, right? Baneling's pretty useless. I am going to right-click the top of the ramp. So this is why having 3 Vipers is more valuable than building 30 more supply. Because 3 Vipers easily... Oh, there we are. Alright. So we're gonna get Neural Parasite, get some Corruptors. As you know, all roads lead to battle cruisers. I expect what he'll do is immediately on clearing this army, he's going to tactical jump into one of my bases. Probably my main. So we'll get some Spore Crawlers. We are building the Corruptors, which were for essentially, well, this.
Evolution process is finished.
And my supply is a lot lower than I would like at this time, to be honest. Because I do lose everything. But, I mean, so did he. You hear the jump? There it is. Do I have enough? Well, between the Spore Crawlers as well. I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna right click and shift click here. He does have Yamato. Because if you don't focus and they just spread their damage in a closer game, then you could end up losing enough Corruptors to matter. Let's see. No! I blame the Creeper Lords. We overdid it. Overlorded it. Oh no. Ow. Ow. But I'm just here. I'm just laundering subs for the people, alright? I mean, that was your typical silver Terran. I'm gonna sit there and do essentially a campaign cosplay spread while building battle cruisers, which is a pretty reliable campaign strat, to be honest. Another Terran. But this is a this is a sample of what we do usually see at this level of the ladder. You gotta get past the Terrans. Well, actually, which is around Platinum. Until Platinum, the Terrans are quite well represented. And then they're just even. Alright, second OV. I mean, you can also, if you're confident in your Overlord micro, which sounds like a lot, but it is distracting. You can send it out a little further to scout for proxies, but it's also perfectly fine to just, against Terran and Protoss, leave your second Overlord near the natural. Because you know how to tell if they're doing a proxy Rex? Well then, you see them build, if they build a bunker at your natural. That's a pretty big giveaway. So, the Overlord will spot it. And if they don't build a bunker at your natural and they do a proxy Rex, well, congratulations. all you need to do is build Zerglings, because they don't have a bunker, which is kind of the point of Proxy Roach.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Speed Trees. It's very key you don't rally your Zerglings into the Marines with a Proxy Roach. We haven't seen any. Honestly, I find, even though it does seem to be very stressful, console yourself with that the majority of the time. Thank you,
Chilling for 2 months.
If they were anywhere close to competent and able to pull off a strong Proxy Rex or early cheese, they wouldn't be in the Silver League with you. So, yes, you'll die to it once or twice until you kind of... Essentially, you need to die to it enough to build up a semi-immunity. You never don't take damage from it, pretty much. Like, unless you are able to shut down the barracks. But you get to the point you're like, oh, okay. Like, this is what I need to do. And, I mean, it's kind of... The sword is developed before the shield, really, kind of situation. Just making sure you have the tools to defend against it. Alright, rally down here. That SCV just chilling. The Overlord on the Pervert Pillar on the other side. Once my base finished, I just sent the Overlord a little further out. That's mostly like so I could see anything coming in. Another Overlord's gonna go over here. He just kind of sent a Marine across. Wow. No respect for the boys over there. He sent... he let the SCV body block, which was kind of mean because they were both gonna die now, but he tried to use the SCV as cover. Okay, I'm gonna go up the ramp. I just built 2 Overlords, by the way. He has barracks, a factory. I'm just right click, and out. Inject. And Roach 1. He's on 1 base Marines. But I'm not scared of him yet. He doesn't have a tech lab, which means no stim. I'm going to get to 40 drones is the goal. I do want a little bit of creep here. I will see him moving out. He doesn't have any air. He can't have a starport yet. If he wants to move out with 7 Marines... I just move this Overlord out of the way so it doesn't die. He can be my guest. We got the Roach one finishing momentarily. I'm going to build 5 Roaches. Put them on control 1. Put them right there. But let's get all of this. Roaches are going to take a second. I'm going to start my lair. He's playing hard to get an Evo chamber. And I'm fully confident against unupgraded Marines. A couple Queens and 5 Roaches will be more than enough. Gonna creep spread a little. Can't transfuse off the creep. But look what they did to my Queens. There is a small risk. We're done with the 520 timing now. Get these gas geysers. Gonna get a 3rd base. I would have gotten the 3rd base a lot. Oh, he can see it. Hold position. Will that give him vision? He wants that OV. Even if he gets it, it's not a huge deal. I'm gonna get a little more creep here. Layer is done. All right. Right click, shift, 1, 2, 3. Right click, shift, 1, 2, 3. 877 cash now. God. I missed 520. Roach speed. Thank you, Chidar. We're gonna get to 50 drones, which is our next achievement unlocked. I'm also gonna get Overlord speed and start my Patroller Lords. Let's go, Patroller Lords.
No joke with Zerg.
Sir? He scans. He sees essentially the same thing. I'm gonna get the Hydra Den. Against this, like against Bile, Roach Hydra's fine. If you have more bases and better upgrades. Once it gets closer, then you want,
New subscriber detected.
Bullion Booth is chilling for 20 months.
when it gets closer, you need Lurkers and Vipers. Like, that's when Lurker and Vipers come in.
Your mutation has completed.
We're gonna go 60-something drones. I don't think the exact number matters as much as, like, understanding when. And right now I'm building drones, because he's expanding, he's turtling up, and if I come across the map, I mean, it would probably, I could probably build a bunch of roaches and hit them. But it's going up a ramp, especially on Curious Minds, as he's a very curious mind. Every scan is one less mule, though I don't think that's a huge concern for him. But mules are supposed to be a big part of the Terran economy. So we're gonna get a few more. Oh, actually, I don't need more of these. Remember. My minerals! Another hatchery. 2 hatcheries in the main. And then tier 2. This time I'm gonna put a spire in an infestation pit. And build some hydras. Now that I have the tier 2 tech, I can build my most expensive units. Though, if you are gonna build hydras, you do usually want to build them as quick as possible. Because they are your more expensive, most expensive units. At least in the mid-game. 50 gas apiece means you kind of got to plan for them a little more than just slamming out a bunch of roaches. Oh. Run away. Ah! We've got Home Depot over there. There's a starport. Where is it? Oh, let's start a hive. Okay. So, he's sitting on the top of his ramp with tanks. Which means, this game, we're gonna do it right. We're gonna get maxed out. We're gonna get 4 or 5 Vipers. However much gas I have when the hive finishes. Nope, I shift click. Once again, the one thing you need to not do with this queen setup is shift click. Because then the queens start running around. Just make sure. Get some roaches in there. What are my upgrades? +1 carapace. I almost forgot Hydra speed. I'm a big advocate of just getting both upgrades. Like, usually, if you're going Hydras, you probably have the money. Like, just queue them up. Most situations I wouldn't say that, but like, not having Hydra speed is a huge deal, and it makes it a lot harder to end the game. +3. We're gonna... One more round of drones. I know, it's addicting. You're like, well, I get a few more drones. Yeah. Just a few, just 80 or 100. I mean, who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? Who's gonna tell? Alright, 5 Vipers. We're gonna give them some Overseers, always a good habit. Sir? Sir? Viking raid! The Danes! Anyways, I don't care if I lose the hatch. Moving on with my... Here's what I want. Here's an achievement for you Zerg players to unlock. I want you guys to
No more minerals in the field.
gets 50 larvae in the bank. All right? Each hatch can hold 20. 50 larvae is just max larvae on 3 hatcheries, technically. It does require inject. You only have a baseline of 3. So, I think a lot of players just kind of forget about injects in the later game, because you usually don't need them if you're maxed out, right? But yeah, getting 50 larvae, I think, is a good stepping stone to, like, remembering you do almost always need to be injecting, because you really don't need it
Finally, evolution process successful.
until you really do. Like when you lose your army and you build accidentally 48 more Zerglings and suddenly you don't have any larvae. Not that anyone here would ever do that, but I would do that. Peaceful turtle. Using that control shift deselect a lot now. I'm learning, like, it's not all one way here. I'm actually learning some real tips from the people who know better than me. I mean, some of those people are Scarlett, some of those people are YouTube comments. Occasionally even their Twitch chat. So could you explain control shift remove one more time? Here's your example. I box selected. Oh, but the Vipers. Control shift, click a Viper, and they're gone. You could also, probably more practical in this case, that's just for this exact moment, but you could also use control clicking the Vipers and then pressing Alt 3, which steals them from any control groups they're in and jams them into the 3 group. That is the steal key. They're kind of 2 different sides of the same. Control shift is just for all selection. Like, I could just control shift out the roaches. Whereas for hotkeys, you can use the steal key for a more permanent solution. So, anyways, away we go. What do we have? Blinding Cloud, Parasitic Bombs, which we haven't used much of. Run away, Vipers! Parasitic Bomb does AoE damage around the target in the air, which is not incredibly effective against high-level players. But if their army is entirely Viking Banshee, it's pretty good. Fun fact, that's the only way I beat Alpha Star as well. Alpha Star decided to play Turtle Terran against my Zerg. This was when it was at BlizzCon. It had already beat me with some ridiculously sharp timings. But whatever version of Alpha Star I was playing against did not understand how Parasitic Bomb worked. Essentially what it would do, because you can land Vikings to dodge Parasitic Bomb. It would land the Viking that had the Parasitic Bomb. It figured that out. But then the rest of the Vikings flew through the Parasitic Bomb. So eventually I actually beat Alpha Star by treating it like a robot. Essentially. The other games I played where it wasn't like niche late game scenarios, it crushed me. It played like a person who was way better than me. It was scary. It was uncomfortable because it was making mistakes like players made too, because that's how it worked. But the niche late game timing, like plenty of players don't understand how Parasitic Bomb works either. It was interesting to see that. Imagine T watching that replay. I'm gonna stop you right there. We did it! Let's see. Does he have the achievement? I don't know where it would be. I have the achievement somewhere. I just need to figure out where it is. I do kind of want to start looking to see how many people have the watch a replay achievement. Nope, not there. Not there, not there. Somewhere in here. It probably wouldn't be that. Economy. Unranked. Ranked. I think it's a feat of strength. Somehow. Maybe. Nope, that's not it. There is an achievement for watching a replay for you achievement hunters out there, though. It's literally called play a replay or play replay. But unless I know where it is, it's hard to find it. Watch a replay. Maybe competitive. No. Ruined. Exploration guide 1, 2, 3. Wait, what? I don't know what the... Oh, wait, what? Play replay. You're... What? This is the most convoluted. Okay. Alright. Well, there you go. Exploration guide 3. Why hadn't I thought of that? Alright, well, let's see, William, who's played like 100 games, so he has watched a replay. In 20... Wait, what? Does that say 10? August of 2010. 2 weeks after SC2 came out, so he's about even with me on that one. Wait. I'm like, huh, 10. Wait. Oh my god. Well, welcome back, William. Yeah, it didn't even register. What year is it? He got his first 5 wins 3 years later. He's probably... So, in Wings of Liberty, over half of people who bought the game never played multiplayer. Which is why eventually co-op became a thing and is immensely popular. Hey, look, you guys, it's a Terran. Okay. Who would have thought? Okay, I'm going to give you a straight up Roach max timing. I'm not saying this is good. I'm saying if this is the latch onto this build and try to do it for the next 3 years, even though it wasn't even good when it started build. It's like the 2-1-1, except even worse because it has less utility. Now we're gonna go for essentially a speed run to Roach max. Assuming I can. Like, there is... If he just is doing, like, a battle crew... There's a lot of things. Essentially, playing Zerg is just getting cyber-bullied. Most of Zerg is getting punched in the face and prodded and, like, a wet willy or something. And then, hopefully, surviving long enough to actually do something. That you can cheese, of course. You got your early pools and early roach rushes, but especially for Zerg, the reason why that's not as favored, especially at the higher levels, is it's just very easy to counter. Like, unlike, for example, even building like a battle cruiser or a void ray for Terran and Protoss, like those are still pretty useful units, especially against Zerg. Even if you're only using them defensively. Whereas, if you build 50 roaches and he just goes like siege tanks and battle cruisers, or even if you build 10 roaches early and he builds a banshee, like, it's not a good time. there's a lot more direct and easily available counters. And that's just kind of why playing Zerg is a different style. It is a get punched in the face and hopefully win several rounds down the line. And that's why Queens are the go-to unit. By the way, if you see a specific game you'd like, for those who are actually looking for builds, I am linking the SC2 Replay Stats account, which is free and has all the replays from this available. So just look for my opponent's name pretty much, or sort by matchup. And you can download the replay, get your watch a replay achievement, and figure out the build as well. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm hiding the build. I'm just, if you want to take a look at your own speed. So, just FYI. And also, it's good to get in. It's good to have the knowledge of how to do that. It doesn't take long to figure out, but it does take a little bit at the start. Marines, and run away. Okay, this Overlord out here. And we are at 3 minutes, so we're going to add 2 gases on. And get those injects. Very important, because I want to get to 60-something drone. Like, so there are 2 versions of this sort of style. There's the super all-in max out, and then there's the high economy. I'm going to do the high economy, because we're not focusing on, like, the super all-in version. So that means around 60 to 65 drones. The actual number you're looking for is 62, but we're getting close is most of it. We're doing the dark book of Zerg, as opposed to the Serral book. The dark book is like, fuck it, close enough. Roach one at about 4 minutes. Works fine.
Forces are under attack.
Oh, hold position. How do you see me? Okay. It is a little finicky on this map. We're going to get a single Evo chamber. Get some creep out here. Spore 20. Now that I have all these, we're going to get those gases. Another Overlord. Just enough Overlords so that way I can see especially air units and things like drops coming. We are now at 58 drones. Gonna get a couple more OVs. Gonna get the creep between the bases here. This is probably the last of creep that I need for now. We're at 62, kind of on the dot. So, just building Overlords. And now, roaches. And you do want to build them as quick as possible, because some of your larvae does come from... It does come from the hatcheries themselves, the basic regen on it. So, neglecting building for a while means you're missing out on a lot of that, potentially. Need another round of ovies.
Your forces are under attack.
Looks like he wants to take a third. I'll spread the creep forward. And since we're laser focused on this one thing, I actually have time to do a little creep spread. So that is the benefit. We see he's going Marine Marauder, so our only safety is really in the numbers now.
Mineral field exhausted.
No more inject.
Expand and defensive. Your mutation has completed.
Transfer some of these drones over here and get some gas.
Evolution complete.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
Make sure we get those ovies.
No more minerals in the field.
Now we only need 2 more overlords. And then we'll have enough to max out on the roaches. There we go.
Uninvited guests come to us.
Oh, how nice of him. Instead of me attacking into him, it's the other way around. So, a click. While this is happening,
Under attack.
we're gonna go build some more hatcheries. Don't do that. That's bad. So this is about exactly a counter to what I'm doing, which is just mass bio units.
Your minerals is ended.
So I need hydras. Ravagers can be okay because it forces them to micro. But overall, your counter is hydras when you're doing this style. So I'm not going to be able to end the game like this. If it's like heavy marine marauder, this is also partially why roaches are no longer very popular as a style. Is just every unit does well against them. Usually their safety is in their large numbers, but if they have similar numbers, you do just lose. So we're getting that tier 2 tech. An infestation pit. I'm adding some hydras now. We'll get the patroller lords. Also, this is more of a lurker situation, actually. Alright, there's the army. Make sure I get the hydra speed upgrade.
Your forces are under attack.
Gonna get some more drones, because I did lose a few over there, actually. I need the overlords. I'm gonna send them out in front, since I don't have the creep. Get a hive. So, instead of... Oh, here's his army.
Mission has completed.
So now I need to pick where to fight. I need to let him come up the ramp, which would be a mistake. Going up his ramp would also be a mistake, though. So. Injects. Let's get the carapace upgrade. Gonna get some lurkers.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defensive. Evolution
One
process is
marauder.
finished.
Wait, no. And then the
Someone
rest.
wants to see the full power of the swarm.
Burrow the lurkers. I'm gonna take some of the lurkers with me here.
It should have happened. Your minerals is ended.
We'll leave those 3 lurkers as usually. 2 lurkers can be killed. 3 lurkers, on the other hand, is very difficult to kill.
Enemy want to destroy the base. Not
He has
just with
2-2 done. This is part of why we don't build the lair at the natural here. Oh, he killed this.
Finally, evolution process successful.
We're gonna need some more hatches.
Uninvited guests come to us. Stop them.
And there goes that base.
No more minerals. Your forces are under attack. No joke with the Zerg. You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster. Your brood has improved.
We gotta remake. I don't know why the hatch didn't remake. That is unfortunate. We gotta move some units in there.
Your army mutated. Time to make expand and defend.
That's convenient enough.
Complete.
Uninvited guests.
We now have lurker range as well.
Your forces are under attack. It should have happened. Your minerals is ended. No more minerals in the field.
Once you get enough lurkers, your dreams can no longer be memes. But that is a large number. Let's get some more creep. And this is why creep becomes important for movement.
Evolution complete.
So he has that sensor tower.
Not just with the Zerg. You can no one want to see the full power of the force.
Gonna go around to this side. We do gotta do a little juggling here. Gotta be careful not to have too many lurkers hitting the planetary. He doesn't actually have detection right now, which is kind of a big issue. Let's get that gas.
Not joke with the Zerg.
I think it's very likely he's gonna send something else out now.
Complete.
We have reached the too many lurkers stage, though,
Mineral field is
where he should have a bit of a struggle in dealing with them. Like 7 or 8 lurkers. 3 or 4 could be dealt with, but 7 or 8 is when it really gets rough. Let's get the roaches in front here.
You have exhausted all the minerals in the cluster.
Well, until he has decidedly not Silver League Micro, I will say. So this is when, as you move up to the Platinum or so League, which is my estimation here, this is when Vipers are needed, even against the bio, because Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs are just that good. I mean, there you go, low APM Terran. Who's... Wait, is that real Masters? Losing a whole lot of 2-second games. But... I'll give him some credit, he kept the APM low. Has been a rough road this season, hasn't it? But, as you can see, the lurkers are the choice. No. Let's take it back. Let's take it back a bit. No, this isn't your normal ladder. I do recognize this guy. He's played in viewer games before, actually. Though, maybe not again, because he's already played it. Now that I think about it and look at the name. So... But yeah. So, we have played a few, what you might call Smurfs. Like, a few people who are obviously not silver. But so far, my experience, I've played more stream snipers than I have played just like random Smurfs. There have been a couple, but I would say it's like 1 in 8 to 10. More like 10. That is still quite high, and it's partially because of the ranking system, but many of them are just like Platinum or Diamond, and with this series, alright, and with this series, most of you should be Platinum or Diamond. He played low APM too. He played 100 as Terran. I played 100 as Zerg. But I'm not gonna... No subs for that one. Maybe the next one, though. And we're in. A Terran. A very... caps lock has never been turned off since he got his computer. Yeah, I would argue that being... It's targeted, it's obvious. He deranked hours ago, and then has only played a handful of games since then. It was obviously stream sniping. It's a dick move, alright? But it wasn't like, you're going to hit that guy on the ladder. Unless you're trying to play at the same time as he's trying to stream snipe me. Just in case you're worried. The downside of doing it live. But, I mean, the upside is Twitch chat. So, the reason you'll see players... I've forgotten to do it some of the time. The reason you'll see players build the spawning pool out here is scouting. Might be like, wait, what? Yes. So what happens is so let's say a marine drop comes into your main. Happens, right? Happens. They attack move into your mineral line. Would you rather them hit your drones or a spawning pool? Like, what if I lose my pool? Well, you have a lot more time to react to a pool dying than you have to react to marine shooting at your drones. So, if they're able to kill the pool before you defend it, you would have lost your entire mineral line for sure, right? Let's be honest here. The amount of damage it takes to kill a spawning pool, I think, is higher than the amount of damage it takes to kill 20 drones, so either way, it's quite comparable. Oh yeah, we're on Berlingrad. He doesn't have an expansion. So, we're backing it up. This Overlord, gonna go to my pervert pillar here. There's like this little air vent area. Hotkey those queens. And build more queens and more OVs. Send one out to that outside area. Another one over here. Oh yeah, Lynx, go! Scouts and drones. Get the gases. Okay. So, battle cruiser. I mean, so we're gonna have the Lings scout the outside bases. Because there are 2 to 3 options here. It could be none or all. But the main options are turtling to battlecruiser, of course. Oh, that's a ghost. Alright. That was not... I'll be honest. I hadn't finished my options list, but ghost was not up the... No, that... We'll get the Roach Horned. Spore 20 is extra important. I'm starting a lair as well. Can you still see it there? What? Dude, what? What is this? It's a campaign mission.
Not drunk with me, Zerg.
Alright. Yeah, opening Ghost to kill an Overlord is a pretty unique move. I'll give him that. Usually, you don't hunt Overlords with the Ghost. There it is. But I've already built the Spore at the front to stop him from doing exactly this. I will get Zergling speed. Oh, don't be so dramatic about dying. Ah! Over the radio. Held down the talk button. All right. I like the outpost wall. Is it battlecruiser time? That's a planetary. Okay. This is our MOOTA game. It's MOOTA time. I said it's MOOTA time. I said it is MOOTA time. I'll just get Baneling Nest. Yes, we're doing it. It's happening. Alright, come back here. Nope, fuck. I lost vision.
Enemy dropped nuclear. Need to destroy Terran spawn.
Where is it? Where is he?
Minerals in the queue.
I don't see the ghost. Is he behind the mineral line? What a genius. Oh, I killed it.
Mineral fuel exhausted.
About half a second too late. I'm just against ghosts. Spore spine is the way to go, because you deal with all the basics there, and you can technically move them to deal with it, though it's a pain. Okay, a few more
Your minerals is ended. You have exhausted all the minerals.
overlords. I make MOOTA. 9 MOOTA so far. I'm gonna get OV speed. Shift 3. Get an overseer because Widow Mines could spell disaster. Okay. There's no reason. Really, as long as you have 5, you have enough to one-shot SCVs. So the actual ground unit composition is Zergling Baneling. Wait, did I not get a... Okay, Baneling speed. Good morning. Did you know it's MOOTA time? He has 2 ghost academies.
Looks like enemy wants to
Sir.
destroy the base.
Which I think are about to launch something. No! We'll get the planetary, because planetaries can't fly away. Key point. That is what inspired MOOTA time. Notice the fusion core. Okay, just kill the starport.
It should have happened.
Widow Mine, Marine, Bunker. The Glaives just... Wait, were there ghosts in the bunker? No. Okay, kill the factory. Kill the Widow Mine.
Finally, revolution.
Alright, well, there it goes. This is gonna be painful. Also, Jimmy! Why do we have... MOOTA time! A command center's... I don't know where it's going. Somewhere else. Well, I need to get the engineering bay. That's his most valuable building. Closely followed by the fusion core. I think there's still a nuke in that silo. We'll leave it. You know what? Cleaning up the whole main. So, Mutalisks. The reason that you don't really build them, even if they do seem very strong, is that they are incredibly fragile, not very cost effective, and require a huge amount of money. Honestly, mutas require more APM than the limit. on their own to actually fight with. That's why, especially mutiling bling games, you see like 600, 700, like 200 is just microing mutas. Because they should always be moving, and you always need to be watching for things like mines. Obviously, at the lower levels, sometimes they just come out. The best case scenario is surprise! Like,
Surprise, motherfucker.
so he's in the corner, right? Is he fighting it? Ah, fuck, I should have killed the NG Bay faster.
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand.
Well, we make 20 more. 20 more MOOTA. Oh, I never got the attack upgrade.
Get home with that.
Dude. Bro. Dude, bro. That's a planetary. I guess he had time to fly over there. No broods? No, MOOTA. I'm cosplaying even pro players when they play with mutas. Like, they'll have 500 gas in the bank and be like, I could get an infestation pit and 4 mutas, or 5 mutas. And guess which one it is?
Mineral field exhausted. Time to make expand and defend. No more minerals in the field.
His SCVs can't move fast enough to repair.
No one wants to see the full power of the swarm.
He is building, I think... Wait, what could he be building out of that? No, it's just a marine.
Your minerals is ended.
Is... Now we're in the Silver League.
Army is much stronger now.
Oh no! Oh no! It's in the corner, isn't it? And he was trying to come back.
Celebrate victory.
It's like, and now I reclaim my main.
New subscriber detected.
Well,
Lategame is chilling for 27 months.
feels like
This
bullying.
feels like bullying XD.
Hey! He said mean things in another language and then nuke rushed me. I didn't start that. He kind of set himself up for it. We had to get our MOOTA game in. Oh my god. Is that a not Terran? I've never seen this.
If you want win, don't relax.
Setting up camera locations. Okay, so Zerg requires slightly different overlords. The second overlord, instead of sitting at my natural, will go to somewhere around his third. This is because you can't rely on just one overlord. In ZVZ, you can almost always see what they're doing. Like, the overlords will see what's coming out of their base. They will. But at the same time, you don't want to be too close because the queens will get angry and tell you to get off their lawn. So you move slightly back and watch from across the street. Is usually your best bet. take the hatchery. If he wants to drone scout, like, I'm not afraid of a spine crawler. Why? Because if he does not have an early... You don't... I mean, he could. He could. There's a small chance. But the 17, 17, 17 should have enough time. And the key is the overlords. The overlords. If you send it directly at the natural, not the main, the natural, you should see any Zerglings coming out on the minimap. Yes, that does require looking at the minimap. That's the hard part. But after that, you can kind of tell whether or not they can be aggressive based on their hatchery timing. Notice how I went for a pretty quick hatchery, about as quick as you could. Hatch first. If his hatchery is significantly slower than mine, he's either very bad and or doing an early pool. So we can't assume the first, so we got to go with the second. So when he has no hatchery, we panic a little. It's like, oh my god. Okay. I moved the overlord so it doesn't... Ah! Oh wait, there might be a hatchery outside my base. There was a drone, and I did not see the drone go home. Okay. Let's check my third. I'm just gonna shift click on the mini-map for the most dangerous. Uh-huh. Sir? Sir? Do you have a permit? He does not have a permit. I'm building more lings now. I'm building more lings because I'm gonna make sure I'm A-click, not right-click, because otherwise when the lings pop out, they could attack me. But if I A-click, I'll immediately jump on those lings. So I need to make sure I'm not right-clicked on the hatch. That's very important. Alright, when it dies... I am going to get the Baneling nest in this game. Usually, Ling Bane is the scourge. Nope, no puns intended, of many players. Ling Bane is important to know how to do, but in most games where they're not building a hatchery in a random location, I would recommend just a roach timing. Back in the day, before we started with 12 drones, but instead we had... back in my day, we started with 6 drones, alright? That was more than half of StarCraft 2 history ago, though. But that was why Ling Bane was so overly prevalent, is because getting to Roach Tech. The Roach Warren still cost 150 minerals. Lair still was a costly endeavor. And since you didn't really have much of an economy, Ling Bane was very popular. Just because you couldn't get to Roaches without sacrificing the potential for a whole lot of Lings and Banes. But nowadays, while you'll still see Ling Bane, like I'll reference Serral versus Reynor, who are significantly better than everyone, but there is Ling Bane, but the Roaches eventually get added in. Sometimes just straight to Roaches, but at least the Ling Bane is kind of just cover for them. I'm going to get to 44 drones-ish. Like, doesn't need to be exact. 44 drones is full 2 base saturation. It's enough to have solid income, but I also don't want to go too far because like he built roaches. So.
Oh, a follower. Is that all?
The firm man is chilling for 40 months. Zerg? More like Smorg. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Alright. So, starting roaches. And spine crawlers, because that was I got panic. Okay. I mean, I'm already building roaches. This is why we stopped building drones, by the way. Now, If I hadn't seen it there, I'd be scared of the Nidus in my main, by the way. I'm actually going to patrol a drone because I don't have any Ovies there. I think that's the next place he'll slap it. Yeah, he's going to try Nidus in my main, I think. Sir? Please? Like, he's got the Nidus. This guy's crazy.
Evolution process is finished.
Alright, roach speed is done. We're just gonna go see. I should have more roaches. I could just take the other base, but like... You went... Okay. Alright. Well... he's crazy. So... I mean, this is your Silver League, which is Zerg players who are just kind of figuring out what the buttons do. So I heard, did you know you could actually hear the direction of it? My prediction is the Nidus is right there. Was I wrong? By how much? It was the third. Nope, no, he's getting away! Okay, I'm just gonna attack him. That's the plan. I'm gonna rally out. 6, F2, F3 on those. He's gonna... Okay, sir. Stop it. Stop. 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 Okay, here's what we'll do. He's doing too much weird stuff. We'll kill him. Let's pull the drones. Like, they're not great, but they're better than nothing. At some point, roach speed is definitely just better. Like, at this point, I don't even want to kill it. Here's what I want to do. I want to let his roaches pop out and then kill the Nidus worm. So that way... Come on out. Okay. There's no escape.
Uninvited guests come to us. Combat. No more minerals in the field.
What a guy. That's a pretty crazy build. Well, we made it. We're golden. And still under, and we get to move up. So what was that, like 7 Terrans? 6 Terrans and a Zerg so far. I mean, not... usually there should have been a Protoss or 2 in there. But... Spine rush against Zerg. I'm gonna raise you. What counterpoint? No. So we've made it to gold. We've learned the ups and downs of roaches. The value of queens and how we'll never ever maximize and how we never appreciated queens enough as they were. And now that they're slightly less, we still don't appreciate them enough. But this is time. It's time for everyone's favorite part, which is YouTube comment reactions and response. Didn't know if you wanted to swap back to StarCraft music. What if I told you this entire time we've been listening to Hard Space Shipbreaker? Because as much as I like the Terran music, it feels a little weird. We'll just have alternative Terran music. It's still OP, but... You should play against a gold Protoss viewer just to pretend like you got all the matchups. I bet there was a gold Protoss viewer out there trying to get involved, but there are just too many people on the ladder. Okay. It's time. Where are my questions? Bring the questions in. J-Mac. But, thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Like, subscribe. I appreciate all the comments. I know there are some criticisms as well, which I think are pretty valid. But it's time to enjoy from the last episode. I will say the Zerg episodes have contained less outright questions and more comments in general. That neither good or bad. I mean, I guess there's not too much to say. It's like, I wasn't building enough queens, and now I build more queens, and that's great. So, just some important information. Zerg aren't the only race with flying biological units, says Gredfee. Night Elves also have them, which I failed to consider. So thank you. Josh, greatest SC2 series on YouTube ever. The Protoss one, I mean. Thank you, Josh, for commenting that on the Zerg episode. And being specific. Now, Azixi Thrill says, my OCD demands to know. That's one way to put it. Are the minerals from a worker that goes to gas from minerals and vice versa lost? Yes. They're gone. Forever. Same is true when your workers die with resources in their hands. They're gone forever. So this very fun and niche fact, this is why you'll occasionally see pro Terran players pull their mule off of the mineral line right before it dies. You probably noticed this if you were paying attention to any Terrans. This is because pro Terrans put the mules on the close patch. So that way they mine slightly quicker. You get the minerals slightly quicker. But if you put them on the close patches, they actually mine the last set of minerals, and before they're able to turn around and return them to the command center, they die with the minerals in their claws. If you put them on the far patches, they mine slower. They mine the same amount of trips on either patch. So it's literally just because these Terrans are min-maxing the close patches, they're trying to avoid losing those 30 extra minerals. Don't try this at home. Don't just drop your mules on the close patches or far. Just make sure they're on the minerals. All right, guys. But yeah, so that is just a side note of this. Yes, you can return them, but also it's just 5 minerals or 4 gas. It is not a priority. It is never a priority. You already have too many minerals. Let's stop worrying about that. And then, why now? As a starting older 34. Older 34. All right. You guys can just have your feelings about that. For first time playing StarCraft. My only StarCraft 1 experience, there it is Zerg. This is very nicely done. Your attitude, form of explanation, humor, with an O only, and chill atmosphere is very nice. I am lost with all these ideas and strategies in my head, going through phases, all-ins, mutas, roaches, hunting, so it's nice and slow and steady. So if you're like Winter, you're not holding my hand enough. Remember, this is a series for bummers. Mr. Snuffles replies, nice. I'm about the same age, and I was a Plat, Diamond, and Wings of Liberty, but I haven't played since then. Hardest thing is to start. So, wholesome comments. The new patch nerfed queens. Yes. So, for those who don't know, with the new StarCraft 2 patch, among several nerfs, queens can no longer transfuse off creep. You just don't have the option. A slight buff to the Nidus, you get 1 tile of creep. 1 tile of creep. I need to keep stressing this because people don't understand what 1 tile is. So a lot of people see the Nidus immediately gives 1 tile of creep. And they're like, oh my god, what a Nidus buff. No, that's tied into the queens because essentially, here's a Nidus. We saw it last game, but here's a Nidus. And the creep would start like there and then expand out. How big is 1 tile? About yay large. So yes. It is enough for the queen to step out onto her purple carpet. But it is literally just enough to get a toe into it. A tile is roughly the size of a creep tumor. That's actually a good comparison. I don't know if a creep tumor is a half or a full tile, but it is enough that the queens can pop out and transfuse. So it just maintains that functionality. It is not like the Nidus pops out and vomits creep over an entire base. That's the Queen's job. Oops, I liked before watching again, says Bastu. Thank you, Winter. Love you, bro. This I think Jimmy included because not of the comment, though I do appreciate it. The Google responses here, which amused me. You're the best, all good, or praise hands. So, these comments seem a bit cherry-picked. Yes, they are, because a lot of the comments are arguing about things that aren't even related to StarCraft, which is fine, but I can't be including it here. There were surprisingly few actual questions, but here's one of them as well. How do you scout enemies during the mid-late game stages? Every time I play, once a year. Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, ready. It seems like there's a blink stalker. Or a missile turret. No matter where I send my overseers from. But when I do get in, I'm not sure what to do when I scout the tech. Except to build more queens. Well, you got it. I hope you go over more Terran and Protoss counters in the next episode. Well ready. I got at least one of those for you. As for mid-game scouting, that is a good point. Like, I almost got caught up for it. You can kind of get in a false sense of security. And queens are your defense in the early mid-game. The early mid-game, I would say, is up to like 100 supply. But after that, they could be building like battle cruisers or carriers. Those are the big ones, literally and metaphorically. And sometimes you'll get stuck thinking about roaches and suddenly, well, roaches don't shoot up. Overlord speed and 2 overseers. All right? When you get 60 drones, Overlord speed and 2 overseers. If you're in any way concerned that they... And if they're not going for a big air switch, Roach Hydra Viper or Lurker Viper is still your answer. But if you get in their base and they're like 3 Starport Tech Lab or like 3 Stargates or something, well then, you need to switch it up. Most of the time, the answer is Corruptor Viper. We saw that one game with Parasitic Bomb. A lot of players, and I think this is a campaign thing. I think the reason a lot of Silver Terrans build so many Vikings is because Vikings don't suck in the campaign. Until we get to Heart of the Swarm, and, well, they're not even good in the trailer. They get smashed by an Ultra, but they do effectively nothing. But yeah, so all you need to know is before you start massing units, which is usually 60 or 70 drones, am I making the wrong units? With roaches, the answer could definitely be yes. So I would say at 60 drones or at the very latest 7 minutes, a couple overseers. If one doesn't do it, try 2 at a time. I mean, don't worry too much about it. Because if they build enough turrets or stalkers, like if there are enough stalkers to stop you from scouting with 2 overseers, especially if they have speed, well then what they're doing is making stalkers. So just keep on keeping on there. Terran is a little more ambiguous, but usually you can get an idea. Okay.
Oh,
Thank you, Synthix. At whatever time reference from the NPC named as Chris Smith,
Always enjoyed your content.
Winter Max is out at 10:30 and says if he has too much, we'll make lurkers. What rank even maxes out under 11? Honestly, players have been getting better. A lot better. Not just your stream snipers, but in general. Because myself and other illustrious YouTubers are too busy trickling down information on y'all, and some of it is absorbing into your beautiful brains. The handful of you that decide to play. So I would say you will find, especially in Platinum, but maybe some in Gold, players maxing out before 11 minutes. Will they be maxing out with all the upgrades or a good economy, or will they do it if there's any sort of harassment? Maybe not. But I don't think it's unreasonable to see players maxing out 11 minutes in the upper meta leagues. So, In case you're wondering, we're not done. We are gonna play at least 5 more games. I'm trying to keep these episodes between like around 3 hours, because otherwise there'll be gonna be a bunch of episodes, but any longer and I start losing focus. So teach a man to build, etc. Yeah. But your goal is to max out as quick as possible with the mostly right units. With Zerg, it's a little different because you do have to adjust, and Vipers and Lurkers are sometimes a higher priority than 20 more Roaches. And that has changed. I will say that is a change from the last low APM challenge. In the last 2 years, even then, obviously, Roach Hydra wasn't incredible. It was just good enough. But I think the bar has been raised to the point it's better to learn how to use these late game units now, early on, or relatively early on if you're coming back, than it is to try to jam your way into Platinum and suddenly face players who are maxing out the same time as you. Alright, I don't know, everything is cheese. Same old trash. 12 pool, cannon rush, 12 pool, cannon rush. Literally 90% of the games. I either play against potatoes using their toes to key press. I mean, you could have just left it at toes, or cheese. So, that should be free MMR for you. If you follow the basic, if you're really struggling with the early cheese, build a pool on 16. Alright? Build a pool on 16. That second overlord should be down the ramp or across the map. Then you can get a hatchery. You can get lings a little quicker. But I guarantee you at 2.2k MMR, you should be able to defend most of those things with just workers. You could. You shouldn't. I'm just saying, like, if they were cannon rushing at that level, I wouldn't call it so much of a cannon rush as a, the essence of cannons eventually wafting through the game is usually what happens with how some of those cannon rushes go. Remember, if it's not actually going to threaten your drones or your hatch, you might have some extra time to deal with it, even if you don't scout it immediately. I feel like Winter can beat the GOAT. Thank you for the acronym of StarCraft, if he wanted to. Cougar Mama says, he is. Thank you, Cougar Mama. Always a fan. But I thought it would be nice for me to let some of the youngins have their time in the sun. Serral, Reynor, Clem, you know. Even Big Gabe gets a shot. So I'm perfectly happy with helping people get a little bit better. And also, this game is a lot harder than it looks, even if it can be simplified. I do say StarCraft is not a complicated game. It isn't that complicated. I compare it to like League of Legends, where you have to read an encyclopedia of 140 different champions, which all have less abilities than a single ghost, but still need like 17 different items that all interact in different ways depending on the phases of the moon or something. StarCraft, like, kind of what you see is what you get.
Is that all?
Most of the units do what they look like they do.
57 months.
They have slightly, like, there are some interactions, I think, like, especially with the spellcaster units, like the Viper, and how its abilities work. Also, of course, the Ghost as well. Like, these spellcaster units are maybe a little more complicated, but overall, it's relatively simple. Like, you get in, you have the same amount of drones as Serral, you got the same amount of SCVs as Maru, same amount of probes as Zhaon. But there's only about 16 units per race, which sounds like a lot, but in total, in the entirety of this game, there's only like 50 units. And most of them are just, this is what they attack, and this is what they can get attacked by. No sort of fancy abilities or any
New
special
subscriber
considerations. So.
detected.
Exorus_ is chillin' for 61
Thank you, Exorus and
months.
Solo Kills.
Thank you for doing what you
So
do
the
less
summary is, thank
New
you, Cougar
subscriber
Mama.
Detected.
So Lox Kills is chillin' for 2 months.
And with that, thank you to everyone for the live support, taking time out of your IT job, which I'm just stereotyping your average SC2 viewer, but we are going to, well, gold is actually a relatively thin league. What do I mean? Like literally the MMR, right? Between the bottom and top of gold. The spirit, a random player. So what I'm gonna do against a random player is the exact same thing. I'm gonna go hatch first, and then I'm gonna win the game. Easy peasy. There you go. Nailed it. That's how you do it. Wow. Gold 3 is only 133 MMR. I should not have queued up immediately. It's going to be him again, isn't it? Yep. There is that risk. Did you know you... Oh, he did leave in the count. Alright. Okay, Twitch chat questions for a moment. Okay, we are now halfway through. Gold 3. That was not the intent. But let's get a Zerg question. How do the Viper mechanics work? That is a good question. I probably should have explained it, considering we're in... Alright. Here you go. Here's the Viper. Probably the most powerful individual Zerg unit with the most utility. The way the Viper works is it doesn't have an attack. It's like the Templar. It's like a flying Templar, essentially. You got Consume, which it deals damage. The Consume restores about half the Viper energy, a little over half. You can eat your structures. There is no protection against consuming them to death. They will, if you click on it with low enough HP, they will die. So this has happened in high-level matches and is a risk if you build too many Vipers. So keep that in mind. But it is important to use that, as Vipers are a hive tech unit, so they come out pretty late. Usually you want to have as much energy as possible, because their abilities are very expensive. Now you have Abduct, which is get over here, which works on everything but like ultras, pretty much. You got Blinding Cloud, which is a very popular one as well. And then Parasitic Bomb, which is probably the most confusing. Blinding Cloud is 100 energy, Parasitic Bomb is 125, Abduct is 75. There is no inherent cooldown on any of these. It's just you're limited to up to 200 energy. So you can use 2 Blinding Clouds, 2 Abducts, but only 1 Parasitic Bomb on a Viper at a time. The general rule is Abduct is used for individual value. Like, if you can't, like, if you're not fighting, but you have units to pick off, you just abduct them. Like 1 or 2 siege tanks, abduct. A Thor, abduct. A carrier, maybe, abduct. As we see, maybe lurkers, abduct. Another key point is abduct brings units out of burrow or siege. Except for siege tanks. It doesn't do it for siege tanks, but I don't know why. But it brings a Liberator out of siege. It unburrows lurkers as well. So it can also be useful for just outright dislodging them on top of bringing them closer to you. The Blinding Cloud. Blinding Cloud reduces units to melee range. It does not make them unable to attack. It effectively makes them unable to attack if they're siege tanks, for example. But, and it's very helpful for things like Thors against Broodlords. It can be used against a large amount of lurkers. Obviously, it's good against siege tanks. Occasionally, you'll find use against a Protoss army, but the Protoss army actually doesn't have a lot of things that are heavily affected by it unless you're also going lurkers. So generally, if you can hit at least 3 important units with Blinding Cloud and you're looking to fight, that's the good choice. Usually you'll see 3 or 4 Blinding Clouds just across the board to try to get rid of the siege. The thing is, it does no damage. Another important point, it affects your units as well. If you walk into the blinding cloud, your units are now blind. Lings and Banes, they don't care. The Hydras may very much care. So you should care about where you put those blinding clouds. And last but not least, the Parasitic Bomb. It deals 120 damage to an air unit it's cast on. And if the unit dies, the cloud remains in the air for that time. So, key points. What has 120 HP? The Viper itself has 150. A MOOTA only has 120. It will live. It will live because of its regen, but only barely. But Parasitic Bomb is huge. Obviously, this is even better when comboed with Fungal. It does not stack. That is important to note. You can't just cast... The reason you'll see pros cast a few out is they expect players to split in micro. If you cast 3 on 3 different Vikings or on 3 different Void Rays or something, it's a lot harder to pick out which ones you need to split off. But you don't want to just stack them all together. It does a max of that 120 damage to a unit over that time. So, the Parasitic Bomb is your way of breaking up Void Ray Death Balls, MOOTAs. It can be used against things like carriers and battle cruisers. It doesn't do enough damage to kill them, obviously. It needs to be combined with, like, Corruptors doing damage and stuff. But it is an option. Usually Abduct is a little better if possible, so that way you can just get one and kill it. But sometimes you're just throwing the Parasitic Bombs out. It's also used against Medivacs a lot, which it doesn't kill them, but it brings them a lot closer, especially if you don't have much anti-air. You can abduct the mothership. Yes. Do you ever recommend Swarm Host? No. We are far below. Why can't you abduct an Ultra? Too thick. So in general, the Viper is kind of your... It's like a Raven. Or for Protoss, a bit like an Oracle. It just is your tool that is a force multiplier. And at this stage of Legacy of the Void, I think many even lower level players, not silver, but gold and platinum even, do know how to set up they'll have a lot of units in a nice defensive spot. And you just don't have enough supply, but like you can't go over 200 supply. Can't go over, of course, is a bit of an asterisk, but you just simply can't build a large enough army to face roll through a lot of the bases. Of course, usually you can build a larger army, but it is a lot easier if you get used to Vipers. We're back to the Terrans. Oh yeah, we do have a new... Nope, Jimmy. We are at 90 APM for gold. Those limits drawn from all of the games played last year in SC2 on SC2 replay stats. So hundreds of thousands. Actually, a total of over 3 million, but that's between all the races and leagues. The average APM of gold Zergs was around 100, which kind of surprised me. It does start to spike up there as players, probably start to learn to larva inject and stuff like that. It just naturally goes up pretty high. But the targets are to focus on winning the majority of games while still playing slower than your average player at this level. Obviously, I know a lot of people argue like, well, but you know how to play better. So you can easily have lower APM because you're doing the only the good actions and not the bad ones. To which I say, yes, you got it. Nailed it. Third Overlord. We're going to send that one over to the 3rd here. We're going to... The Overlord at the front may die. I do want to see if he expanded, though. He should have one. You start a CC first, or a 1-Rax expand. The actual timing is about 1 minute and 40 seconds if they have, like, their picture-perfect build. If they don't have it by 2 minutes, I think they probably either built it on the high ground, or it's a 1-base. So... that's a safe enough bet. And if you stick around, a Marine's going to find you. Eventually. So, I'm just going to have the Zerglings right-click. I don't even care about them attacking. Those are Scoutlings. That's what they're there for. And we got the Queens finishing. Gonna hotkey them. Do Control 6. And you can pick your own hotkey. I'm using 6 because that's what I use for, like, my utility, like oracles and stuff, and ravens I put on the 6 key. But you do not have to use that, obviously, that same key. And then I'm using the camera locations to flip between the bases. F2, F3, F2, F3. I've already set up F4, but I'll recenter it once the base is built. I usually use all 4. Okay. I'm shift-clicking on the potentially hidden bases. We're going to get a Roach Warren. Putting 3 in the gas. What is this? An SCV. A little bit of creep. Some more Overlords. So, we got a couple options here. I mean, the obvious threat is Battlecruiser. It's always. I saw an SCV. Where did it go? Where did you go? Why do you run from me? Spore 20. Now, I might not be limited to that, but I'm definitely going to want to keep building queens. Get a little bit of creep. Okay, so he did build another command center, so we don't have to worry quite so much about a super all-in.
Your forces are under attack.
I'm gonna invest in Overlord speed now. Gonna get Patroller Lords. So this is kind of a little bit of what that guy, I assume, was talking about. Where it's like we're in the mid-game. I can't really tell what he's doing. What's up with that? Like, what's going on? What do I do? So right now, I am getting Overlord speed, and I'm going to start a Spire, because I have 2 comfortable bases. We're going to get 3 in a moment there. I've been definitely taking my 3rd kind of late so far today in this series, because I truly didn't realize how often... Because when they're on 1 base and they attack, it feels like an all-in. It doesn't feel like an all-in. It feels like a cheese. It kind of could be. But I think most of their builds, they probably could have slipped in you know, an expansion and still managed to pull it off. But so that SCV is pretty suspicious. So that's where he ended up. Creeper time. So the Spire is just for Corruptors. I'm just going to start adding that, honestly. If I don't know what he's doing and he has way less economy, the only significant threat that my queens can't deal with is Battlecruisers. So I'm not going to build them blindly. I'm going to get that information.
No more minerals in with you.
I'm going to send that OV in. I have a whole lot of money in the bank as well. But I do need that scouting. All right. It looks like he's going... He has a little bit of everything. So what do we need? How many drones do I have? I have plenty. Build the roaches. Get a Hydra den.
Someone want to see the full power of a swarm.
New subscriber detected.
Pandolfo_Malatex is chilling for 14 months.
I'm going to make sure I have some overseers with the army because it looks like it's going to be drilling claws. Thank you, Pandolf.
Your forces are under attack.
A preemptive move against someone who has medevacs and probably drilling claws, widow mines. I'm going to get a spine crawler. Now, I don't want to do this the second I see a widow mine. Having a spore, obviously, but remember, whenever you build that static defense,
It should have
you're
happened.
killing the drone. You're slaughtering an innocent drone, or promoting it, depending on how you want to
Field exhausted.
sell it.
Time to make expand and defensive.
So you don't want to do that just for the sake of it. You do want to have a purpose. If you have over 50 drones, though, and you have more bases, usually it's not a huge investment. Alright, I built another round. 69 drones. It's a nice enough number. Where are you going, Queen? It's like a medevac. Gonna move the queens to the main. Get another base. Start some hydras as well. A tank. Moving around for some reason.
Acceptable command.
Need some overlords.
Not joke with the Zerg.
Right click, 1, 2, 3. Right click, 1, 2, 3. Can we get that hive started? Yes. Get rid of the Liberator. I don't know what the medevac is doing, but we gotta target the Liberator. Transfuse Queen. Alright. Some more hydras. Did I start my lair? Yes. I mean, the hive. Lurker den. What do we got? Let's go up to 70 drones now. Just rally them over here. And the rest. Get those injects. Okay, she was tired. It happens. After a lot of injecting, you gotta take a break. It happens to the best
Your
of us.
brood has improved.
Evolution.
Hive is done. Let's get 3 of those tasty vipers.
Your mutation has completed.
Bring the army together. And get a little bit. Do you always try to max out? Don't you do some rush? Maybe at some point I'll focus on doing all-ins, but I truly, like, you could stop at almost any time in any of these builds. Like, I could just say, I want to, like, the best timings to pick are when upgrades are finishing. That's your very simple version. So I could be like, my Hydra range and +2 finished or something, and I could just go. And it might do well. But the most reliable, especially up through Platinum, it's not very flashy or exciting as, like, this build will get you to Platinum in 12 seconds every game. Okay, maybe not 12 seconds. That would be a build worth seeing. But it is the most reliable way to win the vast majority of your games, is to play the whole game, so that way you can pick the part of it you'd like when you have a little bit more knowledge. But that's what we're doing. We're playing the whole game so we can pare it down to the parts we need
Pirate clock
as
is
we get
chilling
better.
for 41 months.
Evolution complete.
Adding lurkers in as well. Right click, 1, 2, 3. The Vipers have full energy. I have lurkers, and I'm gonna go with lurker range. And I mean, I'm also maxed out, but before we go though, first thing, injects, so that way I can build whatever I need after.
Finally, evolution process successful.
Okay. So now he's finally dealt with a lot of my overlords here. We're gonna lead with the Vipers. You can blinding cloud turrets as well. This is important to note. Especially if he has quite so many. Pretty sloppy here, to be honest. I lost Vipers to turrets. I eventually got the Hydras involved. Let's unburrow those lurkers. Anti-armor missile. Annoying, but
Evolution process is finished.
yeah. I tried to control 3 separate groups of army. It went okay. Even I, like, honestly, if you can do just okay. Like, my objective was to kill the base. If I felt like I couldn't, honestly, it's risky to keep moving up. If he obviously doesn't have anything, okay. But I killed the base. That was my objective, to be just max out, kill his most exposed base. If he's on anything past 2 bases, really, is
It should have happened.
when you probably should be able to do some damage. Especially with Vipers involved.
No more minerals in the field.
Because the Vipers can kind of crack open the... That was a very sloppy attack, but it's just kind of a quality... quantity over quality thing. Do I have enough for a blinding cloud? I do.
Time to make
So,
expand and defend.
gonna blinding cloud on that, on the Marines. Just kind of a rare move. He's hold positions with some Marines there. It's kind of crazy.
Not just with without.
He does have the Raven.
Have happened. Your minerals is ended.
Yeah, he focused on the Widowmines a little more.
Your forces are under attack. No more minerals in the field.
Well, this is just padding stats now. So, important to note. Did you guys see what happened there? I killed his command center, right? And then his SCVs went to find the nearest base to return their minerals to. You know what that means? There's another base. So I'm gonna put a couple lurkers there. Shift R. They built a Banshee,
No one wants to see the full power of the swarm.
which is technically
Your mutation
an
is
option.
completed. Not joke with the Zerg.
I always kind of rush because they always rush me, and I don't know how to counter
All
it.
the minerals in the cluster.
Are you sure you're not the one rushing first? The way you counter it as Zerg is queens. Queens, spores at the right time, and then you can just sit back and build up. If they rush you, you should have a much better economy. He is repairing it.
Mineral
I
field
can
exhausted.
likely
Time to make it
get
fast
one behind
and
the
defend.
mineral line here. If we scamper through. I think a lot of players will assume that because they lost anything means their opponent is just ahead. And even at the pro level, that's not true. It costs something. At the low levels, it's attention. At the high levels, it's potential investment in economy. That's what rushing,
Someone want to
which
see what
I'm
full
not
power of the
always convinced it is what people claim it is, but that's really the situation. And that is why I can sit back and spend a couple minutes explaining how control shift works
gas in the geyser.
and still be alright. I think I killed his armory, so his widow mines are revealed after they fire. Yeah, I did think he would tap out, but he has those widow mines, alright? I was like, oh, barely made it. No, actually, I forgot we had 90. I could have brought in a whole nother round. Superintendent Alfredo, though, was having a great time. Just taking a bite out of everything. Alfredo the Dawn, I might add. The new VeggieTales hero. Lurkers. Like, lurkers are actually your best counter to widow mines. They outrange them by a lot. They follow very similar principles. They actually both got nerfed in the same way. They both now burrow with their upgrade slightly slower. Like 30% slower. Once you get drilling claws or adaptive talent. But lurkers just shred the mines.
We'll win.
And another important point is if they're building mines, they're likely not building very many tanks. So on top of the fact that widow mines don't counter lurkers, they are instead of a unit that does. So we're best to put lurkers back front. I mean, lurkers should be in the middle. I know, right? Of the fight. Ideally, they burrow close enough to the front to get good hits off, because usually you're fighting against ranged units. If you're fighting against melee, just as far back as you can. Like if you're in Mutiling Bane or Mass Zealot or something. But otherwise, you want to make it... Well, one, you want them to be in the fight, but you don't want them to lead. So that essentially means making it very hard. If they do try to target fire, it's almost impossible. That is most of the goal. So he's Protoss, this random player. This Overlord should have been down here. Usually, another key part, like, in the middle is key because it should keep you from chasing. Like, if you have 8 lurkers, you saw that last game. I almost chased, but then I brought my lurkers up. If you have, like, 8 lurkers and they're not shooting anything, and the rest of your army is chasing up a ramp, well, that's kind of on you, my friend. If you decide to abandon your best units because you won't put in the due diligence, that's a learning experience. Yeah, against Terran, against tanks, a lot of the times players will use Vipers to Lightning Cloud or Abduct, and then just rush in and dunk the lurkers down. Which is not super reliable, especially at the lower levels. I wouldn't recommend that. That's more of a Reynor strat than a Gold League strat. And then I think lurkers are better defensively, and then just essentially just put them in a nice spot to attack. But the part of the reason we're building lurkers is because they are one of the best defensive units as well, especially against people who aren't like masters level splitting their bio units or something. Because it's very hard. I struggle against lurkers all the time, especially with outgoes. So he has a Nexus, which means I can just go take my third. Finally, we get a game because he's on 2 bases as Protoss. By the way, our first Protoss is this random player.
Your forces are under attack.
Scouts and drones, scouts and drones. What do we got? Robo, Gateway. And shift click out. So,
Someone want to see the full power of the swarm.
I don't even... Like, he can chase me if he'd like. There you go. So we saw Robo. That's the important point. I mean, he's following that low APM challenge. I'm just gonna leave. We'll just leave. When I'm going 3 base, I'll get the gas around 3:30. Honestly, so 3 minutes is if you're under threat and need tech. 3:30 is a little more economical. Sometime in there is usually good if you're going with the gases. And you may have noticed, I don't know if I actually pointed it out, I've been going with the gasless openers, which means, like, the reason you would go for gas early is usually Zergling speed. And if you're not going for Zerglings, usually you don't need speed for them. It's just kind of a waste of gas, and it might bait you into building Zerglings, which, while good, we're not really at the point of having the larva, the APM, or the control for. So, that is the big part of Zerglings. It's not so much they're hard to use, it's they take all your larvae. They're very larva, they're cheap and easy. So, shout out to Cougar Mama. So, that's why we're trying to avoid even getting baited into building them. Man, Spore 20, even though we want Robo, we'll get a lair, Roach Warren, a couple Evo chambers. We can see what he's built. He's got Forge upgrading +1 attack here. In fact, I think he's taking a 3rd, unless he was just messing up his wall-off tactics here. So, he does have a 3rd base. So this is actually a straight-up, maybe a Roach Hydra game. Though, there's a big caveat to that, I will say. That caveat is going to be if he builds a bunch of Robo Bay units. In which case, we're either going to need Corruptors or Vipers. And maybe Lurkers.
Evolution complete.
You can also just go Roaches as well. I mean, that might be fine. I think that's actually what we are going to do for this one. Got 1-1. Get the gas. Get this. More inject. How many drones? 64? Yeah, Roaches.
Finally,
Overlord speed is done. I neglected to mention I started it, I think. But the Overlord speed is... Because this is that mid-game time. We're at 100 supply. He's got 3 bases. So I've been pretty safe thus far. I've been comfortable building up. But there is not a non-zero chance of, like, suddenly a... either he has, like, a bunch of Colossi, maybe, or Disruptors, even. Or possibly Stargates. There you go. What do we got here? Another Stargate. So this is exactly what we were looking for. The threat of Stargate. The thing is, he is building a ton of Stalkers. He's building a 3rd Forge. We need way more Overlords. He's got a 4th base on the way.
You have exhausted all the minerals. The army is much stronger now.
So we'll get 2-2. And get the Infestation Pit. We don't want to let him get too much out of those. So instead of going Mass Roach, I am going to add the Hydras in. The key part I was looking for is not so much the Stargates. I was looking to see Robo/Robo Bay. Because I'm not scared of a few Void Rays. I didn't see a Fleet Beacon, but maybe he had one. So maybe Carriers, but I'm not scared of that. I am scared of showing up and he has, like, Disruptors, Colossi, maybe Templar. Any sort of bulky splash damage is pretty strong against what I'm doing. How many drones? We're gonna go up to 80. We're Full macro. He wants macro, I'll macro. We got
Should
the
have happened.
hive started.
Minerals is ended.
I'm gonna spend a little time and send these overlords
Evolution process
to his
complete.
bases and mine. This is mostly for vision. I'm not gonna worry about them living. Inject. He is expanding with, so the timing is going to be plus 2-2. Throw some injects in there.
Someone wants to
So
see what
that
full
is
power
finishing
looks
very soon. I send in a probe out, taking more bases. There's the hive.
Complete.
I'm gonna start the lurker upgrades, but now we attack. Because it is clear to me he is not the lowest level player. So actually hitting a timing is gonna be quite important here.
like. Your army mutated. Finally,
AKA
evolution
when you've
process
reached
successful.
max strength, and ideally before being maxed out. You can target that pylon. That actually helps me out a little bit. I'm gonna get some more hydras,
Mineral field
which will be very helpful
back to magic.
because he has a lot of stalkers and void rays.
Has to prove it. No joke with Wizard.
So usually you don't want to target pylons, but if the pylons are most of his production, then I think most of the time it's okay. But if the pylons are behind his army, it's not worth it. To be clear on the difference. Let's get those injects. But if the pylon's right there in front, and that's where he's warping in, well then sometimes that's the choice. Let's make sure. Because he's just building units so far that die to hydras.
Your Bruce has to prove it.
Stalkers, Void Rays, Immortals, Adepts, Sentries. That's why I looked in his base. I'm like, do you have Carriers? Do you have Colossi? He did not choose the units that scare Hydras. And there's a long list of them, but only now are we seeing some Templar. Yes, always never have just one Overseer, especially if you're maxed out. It's just lazy to only have one, to be honest. You gotta do better. Because you know Protoss, right?
No more minerals in the field.
And there they are. Did you see them? Technically out of detection range, so he's probably assuming I
Your
didn't see
mutation
him.
has completed. You have exhausted
Let's
all
make
the
some more
minerals in the
overseers at home. Just in case. He does still have money.
It should have happened. Your minerals is ended. Someone wants to see the full power of the swamp. Looks like enemy wants to destroy the base.
There's some Void Rays and DTs,
Mineral
which
field exhausted.
controlled 2 on this army. We're just gonna put it over here. Ah, there's a
Why
Coloxan.
the jets come to us? Stop them.
Oh, and there's some carriers. Here are the units we were waiting for. some non-obvious army maneuvers. Like at 9 o'clock, you lifted your army up before attacking left. What? Why is it so much louder in the replay? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, wow. I meant the expansion, not the army. You lifted it up. You can't lift Zerg bases. Like the cut-off leaving probes. No, this I just A-clicked in this general direction. It was literally a single click in the general vicinity of this nexus. There was one action, and it probably was not. The advanced strategy was attacking a base that I can easily kill, as opposed to running up the ramp into where his defenses are. Don't assume complexity when simplicity is a better explanation, as is the entire point. I am doing my very best to avoid any sort of big brain micro maneuver, intentionally, very much so. The point is to be as simple as possible, which means
Impaled is chilling for 61
one
months.
A-click
I have access
will do.
to Byun Serral.
How to make a concave. I mean, the very simple version is just click past once, let your units get there. I've been explaining that as it's happened as well. But click past with many of your units, or all your units, and then A-click once enough of them are within range. It takes some practice, but it is just one small extra step. Well, actually a lot of steps, ideally, so that way you can get all the units to shoot. But one action. We did it! Our friend over there. Like, so, what was that? What was that, my friend? Yeah. It seems like he took the micro, your macro, a little, too serious. No, I get it. Like, a lot of players will either... Here are the two choices.
Now I have your attention.
Either you're target firing
Yogurt
religiously, you're like,
underscore
target fire
chilling
that,
for 11 months.
and then I
Less
misclick,
than
and then
2
right-click
LOW
past the
APM.
army. Or two is just A-click, and the army all gets stuck behind each other. Like, they're all down in front! So, you're right. It does look like a bit of a thing. So, knowing when to right-click and when to A-click is very important, especially with, like, a Hydra-based army, where the Hydras very much, for many reasons, do not want to be stacked up. They are very liable. Like, it's not like Marines. The Hydras are pretty clunky to use in that scenario. Roach Hydra, especially. So you are right that it does look a little complicated, but it's actually very simple. That doesn't make it easy to pull off or know exactly when. But the actual actions I'm making are just right-click once, then A-click at the right time. Not a bunch, like 300 APM target fire, not a bunch of stutter step, just one right-click, then A-click when I have a good concave. And if I don't have enough units to easily get a good concave, maybe I shouldn't be fighting in the first place. That is the summary. I think we'll have one, maybe two more matches, and wrap it up. Maybe one more match. Maybe a cheese.
Oh, good.
Thank you,
Now
Gamer
I have
XP. Maybe
your
one of those
attention.
patented Zerg
Gamer
rushes.
was chilling for 47 months. Sure love.
We'll see what race we're up against. I think there are definitely... I think there is some wisdom in learning some basic cheeses. But there's a reason I'm focusing not on that, but instead on maxing out. But it's important to know the pros and cons. We're not doing drone rush. No. A Terran in platinum. Thing is, there are no good cheeses against Terrans. Especially, like, all the cheeses you do in, like, Masters, Roach Rushes, Proxy Hatch, are actually worse against low-level Terrans. Because high-level Terrans like Maru will sometimes not scout, build 3 CCs, and have 1 Marine. You will not find a Terran at this level, a legitimate gold or plat Terran, who does not scout and goes 3 CC with 1 Marine. Alright? Like, it's actually, like, Terrans get so greedy at the higher levels. Because they can't, and mostly because they know it doesn't take much warning to be able to stop Zergs.
Corpse is chilling for 27 months.
What we're gonna do, I have to wait for it to... This is just how Zerg works. Alright, I keep making excuses, but it's just how Zerg works. I lied. We're gonna get a spawning pool. So, I take it back. I take it back. I thought of an idea. This is something... I never do this, so, like... I didn't even think of it. We're going to do a CC cancel attempt. Essentially, I'm going to make sure I bank up 3 larvae for... My pool's a little late for it. But the intent is to... I'm going to assume... So this is a build that only works if he's not dumb. This is the problem with Zerg cheeses. If he just sits there and builds Marines or a bunker, it doesn't do anything. But if he builds a Reaper and does an SCV scout, like a sweaty Terran, then it actually is very good. Because I can get the Lings out, dodge the Reaper, and potentially delay or even cancel the command center. So far, he has not scouted me. I'm going to get the Lings. My Overlord will be able to scout if he has a Reaper coming out. Yeah, if he's doing a actual build, then it works. If he's not, then this is just hurts my economy. This is the simple version. Alright, he's got a Marine. And there's no command center. And this is why cheesing a Zerg sucks. I don't... Jesus. Well, the cheese has now stopped before it started, because, like, unless I want to do an all-in, which I don't. Like, it's already too late, because I would have needed to get gas for either banelings or roaches. But, we'll see. He's just building a tank. Like, alright. Well, and we're back to getting cyberbullied. So, Queens is the summary. Yes.
Good.
And then I'm gonna get enough creep
Super tacky for
and get my guesses. Remember, 3 to 3:30. I'm spreading out the Zerglings to see if any air units come out. And we're gonna just put the Overlords to the corners. I think it's just gonna be a, I'll get a Roach Horn in the main, of all places. More drones. I don't need to be building Slowlings right now. Even if he does a tank push, the defense is still Queens. He made a Liberator. Spore 20 is very much... A Spore 20 advisory is very much in effect. Let us be clear about that.
Someone wants to see the full power of the swarm.
We do want to get creep both in the main and at the natural, because I think he might just do a Liberator push. Yeah. Like, Marine tank, Liberator. Some Hellions. So against Liberators, you actually want the Spore, like, kind of in the corner, as opposed to...
New subscriber detected.
Golden Hibba 1 is chilling for
This
1
is when
month.
creep spread actually is quite important. Because when most of your fighting army is Queens, the further out your creep spread is, the better you can fight. I think it's not unlikely he just expanded behind this. So I'm gonna throw this out there. There's a Liberator. I don't know what we're doing. I'll start the lair. Another important part is not to be too afraid. So this went from me trying to cheese to what is he up to? But that is the way of, well, one, just the Gold League in general. This is, well, he's platinum, but
No joke with me, Zerg.
I would rather just sit back and let him do his half-assed all-in than try to do some sort of cheese that plays into his hands. There's some roaches. Nope, those aren't roaches, those are marines and tanks. Believe it or not. The triple siege action. Transfuse. Target another liberator. So obviously, this positioning is not incredible. He target fired the rocks, which is not going to work out great.
2 months.
That is annoying. So, if he hadn't gotten caught in that position there, what I would have done is I would have built Ravagers. This is the scenario for those Ravagers. This is the time. Why? Because Ravagers can target fire tanks and Liberators. And since it is kind of a low economy situation, he doesn't have enough in front to keep me from doing that. Alright. Tanks are very good. Ow. Alright, well. Do you guys know what time it is? Somebody say it. MOOTA time!
Minerals in the field.
So this is not even like trolling game time. This is the time for mutas. He's not making mass marine Widowmine Viking. He's making essentially everything else. He probably will end up going mech, so I'm continuing. Like, I'm not worried about spending on my basic upgrades here. Worst case scenario, I keep him on 2 bases. Like, I keep him stuck on those 2 bases. Best case, I win the game. It'll probably land somewhere between those 2. Alright, right click, shift 1, 2, 3.
More minerals in the field.
Then right click, shift 1, 2, 3. Right click, shift 1, 2, 3. Just slap some more hatches down.
Someone wants to see the full power of the form. Your army mutated.
We're gonna get... So, you don't want to overdo it. There's no way even on my best day, am I gonna control mootas well enough. I'm gonna get 10. Which is enough to fight and potentially kill turrets, even if I don't know if that's the best idea. But not enough that the majority of my army supply is going to be Mutalisks. We're going to continue those ground upgrades. Get some injects here. Shift Q. So it queues up injects. That means just another inject will start right after the first one ends when you do that with the queens. It isn't giving more larvae each time, it's just more uptime. What do we got? We're going to 80 drones. Get the infestation pit. Let's see what he's up to. No turret. A click in the base. Does he have any units that shoot up? Yes. Never mind, he did make Mass Viking. Of course. On the bright side, without the Marines, the Vikings are bad against mutas.
Time to celebrate victory.
Oh. So we're up in the leagues where people will actually tap out when they've lost. That is definitely something I need to consider. I always right-click into an S key to move forward with my roaches. Is it a bad habit? That's actually quite good for MOOTA micro. The S key is the stop position key. The thing is with larger armies, if you stop position, some of your units might not actually continue moving towards... Because if your army's large enough, the ones in the back, even if you have a decent concave, might not be close enough to actually activate and fight. That's usually why you use an A-click with large armies, so that the rest move in from the side. So that way they don't... Like, for example, here's stop position.
Your minerals is ended.
Here's A-click on this area. Like, even if they're a little further back, they might not get drawn into the fight, depending on the situation.
Army is much stronger now.
It is fun to micro mutas. I wish it wasn't so fun to micro mutas, because it's bait. Even for me. Even at nearly double this MMR, it's bait. Like, I am hard-pressed to ever fight against or with mutas and make them worth my time and effort. Like, but they're so fun, though. You know, if you want to have fun, go play co-op. Where they have the super mutas that do, like, extra damage to armored and hit, like, 6 targets or something ridiculous. Okay, that's what co-op is for people having fun. Well. No! Well, you see, this is what happens. 92. We failed. Also that. Also, like I said, actually microing mutas is more APM than the limit.
Good. Now I have your attention.
Winter Gaming is now chilling.
That's still not right. Well, overall, though, I think that is a good place to wrap it up. We're starting to hit the players who obviously have an idea of what they're doing, but are still kind of unfocused. And Zerg is a little unfocused. I hope to soon I do want to do some more cheeses. I truly do think, since this is a boring series, it's not supposed to be a fun series. It's supposed to be an educational series. Maybe I'll do another series that people can yell at me a lot more for, which is lowest APM and also builds you never would be able to pull off yourself. Like burrow move roaches to masters or something. Because I could. If I couldn't, that'd be very sad because I've played this game many times. Many, 12 years. 12 years. We possibly see one more cheese? We could, but you'll have to tune in next week. And by next week, actually, yeah, if we're doing it live, it is kind of week by week because I am spending, like we're getting each round in. Though Protoss is already at Plat 1 because of the weird ranking. Not because I've played more games. It's been about the same. And in fact, I've lost a few, but I don't know. So what do we go over today? On top of Queens and that new, relatively new to me, control grouping the Queens and then using it, and then using it to inject with the camera locations makes so much sense, but I wasn't doing it before. I think you guys should try it, especially if you're already using the camera locations. Hatchery, hotkeys, we kind of got the basics of. The bad habits. The bad habits are creep spreading, when you should be doing probably anything else. Overlords, either not doing enough or doing way too much. Just building Zerglings for the most part in general, but especially getting baited into building too many Zerglings, or things like spine crawlers in the beginning of the game. Basic scouting. We've gotten to more advanced scouting now, but is he expanding? Is there a base? If they're not expanding, can we figure out anything else? And then later on, around 100 supply or 60 drones, is it battle cruisers? Is it carriers? Do I need to stop building roaches? Yes, no. Figuring that out. And then from there, deciding on a ground or more air base.
Versus Skyden is chilling for 1 month.
Thank you. Versus. Drones versus not drones. So the general answer is almost always drones and queens. At least up to 50 or 60. If you better be getting straight up all in if you're stopping significantly before that. Overlords, Pervert Pillar, Batman Pillar, whatever one you're more into, whichever one sounds more clever to you. That one. Mechanics are everything. Yes. Literally, honestly, thank you, Scarlett, again, but for that tip, it actually is less APM to do the control group queen injects, where you control group the queens you have injecting and then use camera locations, so you get the best of both worlds. Because you're not individually selecting each one, you've already got all 3 selected. So that actually lowered my APM, raised my injects. What's not to love? And then for the tech tree, essentially, Roach Warren is your go-to 90% of the time. Maybe not as much in ZVZ early, but 90% of the time. And then Lair blossoms, and you get your Tier 2 tech. The Tier 2 tech is when, one, you don't need or don't want more roaches. The difference is, are they doing a quick all-in? If no, do you want more roaches, or are we going to Tier 2 tech? That would be Hydras and or Infestation Pit. Well, Hydras probably and Infestation Pit, or maybe occasionally Aspire, as we saw. And then the production and upgrade targets, generally, well, we're just targeting 50 larvae. All right, just getting 50 larvae at any point, ideally as soon as possible, but at any point. And then maxing out and getting a hive. Maxing out by 10 minutes and starting a hive by then would be great. 11 minutes is a little more realistic, I think. But if you can get that hive started by 10, you're probably in a good spot. And then, next up will be reinforcing good habits. So, a little more advanced Overlord stuff. A little more on making sure to spend the larva. And then a much greater focus on late game army and control, which is Viper, Lurker, Creep, is actually late game. That's the one. That's something that I think a lot of players, like, the Creep is gone and it's gone forever, or it's the only thing you focus on. But finding that happy balance, and then advanced benchmarks like in what matchup, when do you need a third, when should you really, like, maybe we branch out on Spore 20 a little bit because you technically need a little earlier against Protoss and a little later against Terran. We're getting all specifical. But yeah, that's coming up next, so don't wait. Click on it now. It's coming up. Unless it isn't, because you were awesome enough to watch in, like, the week before it comes out. So, but it's not. If it's not there, well, just watch everything else. You'll probably not be done by the time we get to it. But yeah, that summarizes that. We're gonna take Twitch chat questions. Why do you never use banelings? Well, banelings are made when a Zergling hates everything in life and it just wants it all to end. It becomes a baneling. And a baneling, is better known as a waste of money. Yes, banelings are cool and fun, and like many things that are cool and fun in StarCraft, they're better in co-op. So, a baneling here costs, it costs 50 minerals and 25 gas. 50 minerals and 25 gas. So, for example, you run 10 banelings in and kill 20 Marines, all right? You just spent 500 minerals, and is that how math works? Yeah. You just spent 500 minerals and 250 gas. Those 20 Marines, yes, they did cost 1,000 minerals. But the gas is the key part a lot of the time. The reason we don't build Zerglings is not so much that Zerglings aren't good. It's because of larva. The one huge thing that a lot of players do not respect, because it's hard. It's difficult. It's not flashy at all. You never see it in a cast, really. Like, nobody on a cast, even like in the top tier games, they're like, oh my god, look how good Serral is at larva injecting on time. I would love a clip if anyone would ever waste their time casting like that. Like, oh my god, his larva injects are very much on time right now. But that is why Serral is so much better than you or me or all of us combined. Like, he's not missing a beat on any of that. All the stuff that almost essentially everyone else makes a mistake on. And the further down you go, the less people respect their larva. Especially, another side of it, another side of the Zerglings, is that not only does it not respect your larva, but it demands your attention. And I mean, look at it. Look. Hard not to, right? Exactly. So, that means when you're looking at your Zerglings, you're probably not focused on anything else. That is my, what I've noticed. I mean, they're fast. They could be fighting an army right now if you're not looking at them. It gets a little better as you get higher up in the leagues, but at the same time, like, a lot more can go wrong. So while Lings and Banelings are amazing and fun, that's what co-op is for. So right now we're focused more on Hydras. I think when we're around Diamond is when you no longer can get away with roaches against relatively competent players. You can, but it actually takes more work than just adjusting and starting adding Lings, because the idea is, by the time we get to Diamond, we'll have the habits ingrained to get enough larvae to deserve Zerglings. Okay, that's important. We don't deserve them yet. We're just not there. We are not ready. Have you considered the eye tracker? I have. It's a little bit extra work, and also the thing is, about 1/4 to 1/5 of people really don't like it. It's like a straight up turnoff. And for YouTube, it would have to be on for everyone, is the downside. So while 80% of people might think it's cool, or at least not mind, having 1/5, like up to 25% of people be like, I just can't watch this, it's not a great trade-off. Maybe one episode we'll try it and see how that goes. But that is my experience with using it, unfortunately. It's not even their fault. Like, I get it. Even if it is kind of unintrusive, it literally draws your eye, which might be intensely distracting, for some people disorienting. Oh yeah, take some use. No reminiscing in my chat. Back in the day, we could just make roaches, and that was considered, like, Stefano's like, here's what you do. You make a bunch of roaches. No, you do it really fast. Tournament winning strategies, okay? Nowadays, a bit more detail is required, as your average Diamond player can probably defend a Roach Max pretty well. But back in the day, that was more of a strat. But any of you coming back, it has changed. It is harder. That's how it get. That's what happens. You look back at some of the Wings of Liberty, like GSL BlizzCon finals, and you're wondering, well, one, Infestors seem very OP, but also, did we invent Marine splits yet, or has that not happened? So, yeah, Rogue is a little different. Rogue doesn't really do, like, maxed out roaches. Rogue just hits you in the face the split second you look away. You're just sitting there. It's like in, I'm going to do my best to compare to other games. It's like in Counter-Strike, where you're holding down the door, Dust 2. you got your op looking down mid, right? So you're staring down it. And then the exact second that you look away, he jumps out from CT spawn and snipes you in the head. That's how Rogue plays. That is his strategy. It isn't like super quick necessarily. It's just exactly when you're least expecting it. It just seems to be like if you knew what he was doing, you'd be fine. But he always mixes it up just enough. When I first hit Diamond, Terran was scouting me early, so I threw down Eva Chamber. I'm doing a timing, and then I macroed, and they were preparing a defense instead of macroing. Then I did 1-1 MOOTA Bane. My micro trainer jumped me a magic box against the Liberator in close range. The manufacturing man won that game, and I hit Diamond and got decimated by Ghosts. Was this all the same game, or is this like your memoirs? I can't, like... It is unclear. I think it's a bit of both. Matches after I don't know how to beat Ghost. Well, if you figure it out, I'm sure there are several Zergs who would love to know. Are your guides from 2020 still solid? Yes. The only patch since 2020 happened today or yesterday. And it doesn't affect anyone really below Diamond. And arguably below Masters, really. So, it is... I don't think any of my guides have me queen walking as a strategy. The only strategies that don't work anymore are like Void Ray cheeses and the counter Void Ray cheeses, which are queen walks. Everything else is completely the same. Maps are slightly different, but they're very similar. Yeah, that's about it. So for better or worse, yes. Also, I have Terran guides from 2013 or 14. I don't know if they're especially good, but you could probably add like 8 supply to the start of the Terran guides and use those, because that's how little Terran builds have changed. So not Protoss and Zerg. Protoss and Zerg had some significant changes with Legacy of the Void, so you'd have to be a little further on, especially Protoss. But Terran is still like, I'm gonna open up like Hellion Banshee or Marine Marauder into more of that shit. Like, just some more ghosts in the later game. What maps should Z ban? So I've been over this a bit, but I vetoed Blackburn and Pride of Eltaris because they're different. I'm doing this for all the races. I'm not vetoing a good or bad Zerg map. It's just these maps. Blackburn is a completely different layout than the rest. Pride of Eltaris is a huge map with it's just significantly larger with several quirks, including like full gold bases and a watchtower in the center. So essentially, for the purposes of this series, I'm trying to be as consistent as possible, which means essentially the same build every game, or the same style. And that's why those are vetoed. And I think those are perfectly fine. If you want to have a boring, consistent ladder experience, it's probably your best bet. I keep losing in TVT. Any tips? Remember that they can build the same units as you in the early game. You can't just not build. Especially, well, if you're gold, just watch the low APM challenge. If you're diamond, you have to go 3 Reaper, 2 Hellion, unless you've solved that, which no one has. It is kind of like how Protoss versus Protoss, once you get past like Platinum, you actually have to care about adepts. And also, like in ZVZ, how we'll think about Lingbane or Zerglings, like at Diamond. But how does Plat Terran? You see, this is just for you Zerg fans out there. This is the Zerg episode we're wrapping up now. Like I mentioned about the comments, there were a few actual comments, a few actual questions. It was more Either people complaining, mostly Terrans, about Zerg. Just basic compliments. Thank you. And a handful of just general comments. But the Terran videos, as we know from all the angry coaches, Terrans are a bit more details-oriented, for better or worse. So you guys keep it up. Has Plat Terran beat the Protoss Deathball? The answer is Ghosts. Or Ranged Liberators. Or both. Mostly Ghosts, though. Ghosts actually kind of solve everything. It's just they're very hard to use well. All right. Well, I think we've pushed this a little far, but yeah. With that said, remember, keep your Zerglings at home, respect your larvae, console your queens by keeping them on the creep. And I hope you truly think that I'm helping you learn to do a build, because if you teach a man a build, you can get to platinum. But if you teach a man to build, a salty diamond player at least, very likely. Might take a bit, but I think most people can get there, even with Zerg. So good luck, have fun. I hope I made your day and your games a little bit better. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, I guess, if that does anything. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.